Chapter 799. Even if he was entangled by Shi Kuei's huge body and couldn't move, the white bear monster was still cursing and even tried to take the opportunity to attack Yangchun. Although this white bear also had the cultivation base of the Yuanying stage, its wild nature was not extinguished. Even if Yangchun tried to communicate with it several times, every time he felt the anger and killing intent of the white bear, it was estimated that it was impossible to subdue the white bear. There was no way. Yangchun could only let Gong Sunling throw the white bear monster into the mountain river geographical map, like the Yuanying stage master of the Taishaman. It was not that Yangchun suddenly changed his mind and was no longer bloodthirsty, but Gong Sunling suddenly discovered that even in the process of sacrificially refining her life source magic weapon, she could still put people into the mountain river geographical map. Of course, this was not in the battle, but the other party was thrown in without resistance. The difficulty was naturally very different. Every time, there was a master of the Yuanying stage in the mountain river geographical map. It was equivalent to the master of the Yuanying stage cultivating and also sacrificially refining this life source magic weapon for Gong Sunling. For Gong Sunling, there were many benefits. When a master of the Taishaman was in a coma, he was fed a healing pill and then thrown into the mountain river geographical map. He was tortured by the cypress monster family. Coupled with the hypnosis of Yangchun, he believed that after he woke up, he would only remember that he was lucky and was thrown into this extreme northern wilderness by Yangchun. As for what he would do after his injury improved, it was not known to Yangchun. Anyway, he would cultivate anyway. As long as he cultivated, he would help Gong Sunling in the sacrificial refining of the mountain river geographical map. Even if he returned to the Dao sect territory in the mountain river geographical map and returned to Taishaman, he would not know what happened. He only knew that everyone had disappeared and he was alone. The white bear monster was also dealt with in the same way. After being knocked out, he was thrown into the mountain river geographical map. In this way, with the addition of Li Junyu at the beginning, there were already 3 Yuanying stage masters in Gong Sunling's mountain river geographical map, which would be faster and more powerful. The cypress monster family was naturally scattered and brought all the good things that could be gathered in the white bear territory. Yangchun has already said that these things would belong to whoever found them. In the future, it would be their own private property. The cypresses were very excited and they were searching everywhere. Only the old patriarch and Mubo remained unmoved. They only stayed by Yangchun's side. From a memory of his previous life, Yangchun knew that Mubo had always been obsessed with cultivation and never indulged in foreign things. Even the life source flying sword was also his own wood heart. It was normal that he did not value these things. However, the old patriarch made Yangchun look at him with admiration. His performance did not seem to be fake at all. Coupled with his cultivation these days, he was not worse than Mubo, who had absorbed the branches and leaves of the Penglai divine wood. His qualifications must be extremely outstanding, but he didn't know why. There was no memory of his previous life. Perhaps he had already died at that time. This kind of talent should be handed over to the old tree demon Gui Shanyu to carefully carve. He believed that Gui Shanyu would not refuse a talented disciple. The group continued to move forward. Without the white bear monster, the road ahead was smooth, and they soon arrived at the small Immortal's cave that the Taishaman guy said. The position of everyone at this time was no longer on the land, but in a huge frozen ocean. The place where they landed was a huge piece of ice that was connected into one. It was not known how many years this was frozen. Even if they knew that this was an ice sea, it was no different from the land. The Immortal's cave was not on the ice cap, but on the bottom of the sea. With Yangchun's shuttle, it was almost effortless to reach the bottom of the sea. Soon, Yangchun found the location of the Immortal's cave. According to the correct technique, he made a secret technique and entered the Immortal's cave. As soon as he entered the Immortal's cave, he felt a strong warmth. Even under the ice sea, this warmth could not be stopped. For the time being, Yangchun did not know if there was any danger inside. He did not release the cypress monster family. Only the old patriarch and Mubo, plus Yangchun, Gong Sunling, Shi Kuei, and Xie Sha, a total of 6 people, carefully began to explore this Immortal's cave. It was a small Immortal's cave. The space inside was simply a small piece compared to the Blue Vault Mountain Immortal's cave. It added up to only 100 miles. However, the planning in this Immortal's cave was good. A lot of precious medicinal materials were planted. Although no one took care of them, after thousands of years, there had been a lot of growth. Moreover, the medicinal materials were widely sown. With thousands of years of reproduction, it has covered most of the Immortal's cave, and there were elixirs everywhere. In addition, in a huge room called the Hidden Sword Pavilion, there were hundreds of flying swords that had been formed. The 5 elements had all attributes, and the quality was excellent. The original owner of this Immortal's cave was a master of refining and was highly valued among Taishaman. However, he was only valued. Every day, he could only refine the sword for the sect, but he could not enter the high-level core. This was also one of the most basic reasons why he left this Immortal's cave for his disciples. Hundreds of excellent flying swords were left here. It was obvious that the owner of the Immortal's cave used the resources of Taishaman's cave to hide his small treasury. Originally, it was intended to benefit future generations, but now it was all cheap for Yang Chun and others. Go and choose the flying sword you like. One for each person. Don't be greedy. At this moment, Yang Chun directly released all the people of the Cypress monster family and let them choose. Everyone was overjoyed and quickly entered the Hidden Sword Pavilion. Even Shi Kuei and Xiesha were no exception. Staying next to Yang Chun, apart from Gong Sunling, only Mu Bo was left. Gong Sunling was not a sword cultivator. It was normal not to use a flying sword, but Mu Bo, a pure sword cultivator, did not choose, which made Yang Chun a little surprised. He could not help but ask, "Mu Bo, your flying sword has just been destroyed. Why don't you choose one?" This disciple still likes the flying sword that I refined myself. Mu Bo stared at the excited appearance of the people in the Hidden Sword Pavilion and replied respectfully, "Even if you don't need it, take one and do a favor in the future." Yang Chun smiled and said, "In the worst case, it is also necessary to leave a good sword for your disciple." Master's kindness, Mu Bo certainly could not refuse. Moreover, Yang Chun also said clearly that Mu Bo wanted to leave a good sword for his disciple. Wasn't Yang Chun also left for his own disciple, Mu Bo? At the moment, he did not disobey Yang Chun's good intentions. He walked into the Hidden Sword Pavilion and carefully selected. "You don't want to go?" Watching Mu Bo enter the Hidden Sword Pavilion, Yang Chun turned to Gong Sunling and asked with a smile, "I have you. Am I afraid that my disciple will not have a flying sword in the future?" Gong Sunling covered her small mouth and replied with a slight smile, but her eyes were full of sweetness. Chapter 800. Although these flying swords were good, they could not enter the eyes of Yang Chun. However, the Qinyang Palace had another batch of good swords, which could make many disciples bask in the glory. Of course, those who saw it had a share, and with the water pavilion, these cypresses, of course, had to enjoy this benefit first. In terms of loyalty, these monster cultivators were more reassuring. Everyone needed elixir, but pure elixir did not have a good effect. It was best to refine them into medicinal pills. With Yang Chun, the best alchemist, these medicinal materials naturally did not need to bother others. For the old patriarch, Yang Chun directly gave him a promise. As long as his people reached a bottleneck and needed medicinal pills to break through, Yang Chun would prepare suitable medicinal pills for them. Everyone liked the situation of everyone being happy. Yang Chun released a Zhu and a Bai and let them collect all the old medicinal materials in the Immortal's cave in the medicine garden and tidy up the place by the way. This Immortal's cave seemed to be a good space to assist in the growth of medicinal materials. With a little transformation, it would be the best medicine garden. It was just reserved for the female apprentice who was good at growing medicinal materials. There were still a large number of palaces that had not been seen. Yang Chun took Gong Sunling to turn around one by one. Shi Kuei and Xiesha had already found a flying sword that they were satisfied with and happily followed behind. The two monster cultivators actually had their own life source magic weapons refined from their own bodies. Shi Kuei's poisonous daggers, Xiesha's pincers, and poisonous pincers were powerful magic weapons, but now they were still in the process of tempering their life source magic weapons. They would not be used easily, so these two flying swords could be used temporarily. Along the way, it could be seen that this small immortal's cave had been carefully refined by the original owner. The palaces and houses were very sophisticated, and the materials used in it were also first class. They didn't know how many resources the Taishaman had embezzled in the past to be able to cook such a delicate immortal's cave. In addition to the hidden sword pavilion, there was also a material room. There were a lot of materials inside. Even now, they were rare and good stuff. There were several materials that Gaoyu needed to refine the dragon horn flying sword. Of course, Yang Chun accepted all of them without hesitation. Further in, there was an alchemy room. However, there weren't as many medicinal ingredients in the alchemy room. It was empty except for a huge cauldron in the middle. However, there was not the slightest bit of medicinal qi in the cauldron. Clearly, it had never been used before. The quality of this medicine cauldron was also very good. Looking at the craftsmanship, it was of the same origin as the flying sword. It should have been personally refined by the owner of the cave. This medicine cauldron could be given to some people in the sect who were good at alchemy. The innermost room was a study. Bookshelves made of gold and jade had not decayed in the slightest even after thousands of years. Hundreds of jade slips were neatly arranged on top of them. Yang Chen's eyes suddenly glowed. The things recorded in this kind of jade slip were usually inheritance, especially the things that this person had painstakingly arranged and left behind. They must be good things. Yang Chen couldn't help but be tempted. Hundreds of jade slips were picked up and looked at one by one. The first few hundred were almost all cultivation methods. Moreover, they were some of the high-quality cultivation methods that the Taishaman had collected. He didn't know how they were carefully copied by the owner of this cave and left here. Perhaps it was an additional inheritance of the Taishaman left for the younger generation, but now it was obvious that they were all cheap to Yang Chun. There were also dozens of jade slips, which recorded some things about medicinal material cultivation and alchemy. Naturally, all of them had become Yang Chen's possessions. What surprised Yang Chen the most was that there were more than 100 pieces of jade slips that recorded various refining materials and refining techniques. Some of these were lost in Taishaman, but they were actually placed here. In particular, there were 10 pieces of jade slips that recorded the refining experience of the owner of the Immortal's Cave, which was simply priceless. The owner of the Immortal's Cave recorded it in great detail. All the flying sword here, the refining process and techniques were described in detail. Even where there were mistakes, where he felt proud, were specially marked. Even the medicinal cauldron, and even the refining process of the entire Immortal's Cave were clearly recorded. Compared with the things obtained in this Immortal's Cave, these jade slips were the most important to Yang Chun. Especially the last 10 pieces, it was simply the complete experience of the owner of this Immortal's Cave. The things inside Yang Chun looked at them. Some were even more novel than some of the techniques in the spiritual world. It was a rare good thing. He could imagine how happy his master Gao Yu and master ancestor Wang Yong would be when they saw these things. Of course, his future little apprentice, who was good at refining, would also be very happy. After looking at it again, it seemed that there were no good things worthy of Yang Chen's attention. Just as he was about to collect this Immortal's Cave, he suddenly thought of a problem. It was warm all the year round, and the spiritual power was abundant, but he did not find a shadow of the spiritual vein. Yang Chen's heart moved, his spiritual awareness was wide open, and he began to search around. After a while, Yang Chen found a clue and went straight to the alchemy room. On the ground, under the medicinal cauldron in the alchemy room, there was a small circular gap. There was an earth fire inside. It was this earth fire that made the entire Immortal's Cave warm like spring. Most people would habitually think that this was just a fire source prepared for alchemy, but in the eyes of Yang Chen, a master of fire control, it was completely different. You wait here. I will go down and take a look. After moving away the medicinal cauldron, Yang Chen looked at the fire outlet in the ground, exhorted them, and then jumped directly. Yang Chen had a fire attribute spiritual root, which everyone knew very well. In this kind of earth fire, there would not be too much of a problem, so everyone was very relieved. As soon as he jumped into the fire outlet, Yang Chun found that it was not such a simple earth fire vein at all. This earth fire directly covered almost 100 miles, which was exactly the size of this Immortal's cave. This was just the size of the fire vein on the surface. The root of the fire vein was deep underground. It was not known how deep it was. For a while, Yang Chen's spiritual awareness couldn't explore the bottom. To Yang Chen's surprise, in this place where there was no trace of burning, but the ground was full of hot, flowing magma, there was a different fire aura among the countless flames, which made Yang Chen catch it. This was actually a wisp of fourth fire true essence. Yang Chen never thought that under the ice sea of this extreme northern ice field, there was such a large area of earth fire, and from time to time, there would be a wisp of fourth fire true essence. Why was this Immortal's cave here? It was simply to cover this earth fire spiritual vein and cover up the emergence of fourth fire true essence. Otherwise, it would have been occupied by the surrounding great monsters. Chapter 801. Although the discovery of the fourth fire true essence in the earth fire was a happy thing, it was clear that the original owner of the Immortal's cave did not have the ability to subdue the fourth fire true essence. He just used this Immortal's cave to occupy the place, presumably to leave it for future generations. For Yang Chun, this was not a big problem. There were several formations in his mind to collect the fourth fire true essence. He was a fire cultivator, and he had reached the level of great principal golden immortal in his previous life. The fourth fire true essence was really not a great thing. However, this trace of the fourth fire true essence did not appear frequently. Yang Chun wanted to collect enough to cultivate the fourth fire true secret art, but it was not so easy. Even if he started to arrange the formation to collect it now, according to Yang Chen's estimation, it would take at least 100 years to have enough for Yang Chun to cultivate the fourth fire true secret art. For Yang Chun, since he had found the fourth fire true essence, it was always better than not finding it. For 100 years, Yang Chun could wait, as long as he was careful not to let people discover it in advance and take away the Immortal's cave. Fortunately, this time the people who came out with him were his own people. Yang Chun came out of the fire outlet, and then without saying anything, he went directly to the material room over there to take some materials and jumped into the fire outlet. After discovering the fourth fire true essence, Yang Chun looked at the materials in these material rooms and immediately understood. Most of the materials left were of the fire attribute. They were prepared for this fourth fire true essence, but they didn't know how to get started. It was really convenient for Yang Chun. It was the unlucky Taishaman. It was estimated that they did not know that their own master ancestor had left such a good thing, but they did not open their eyes to find trouble with the Cypress monster family. Not only were they trapped in a mountain river geographical map, but the things were also obtained by Yang Chun. To arrange a formation of 100 miles, even for Yang Chun, it took a whole month. Fortunately, there were enough materials. Yang Chun could direct the fourth fire true essence produced in this earth fire spiritual vein to a location and slowly gather it. Just waiting for the passage of time, it would accumulate more and more. Satisfied, Yang Chun flew out of the earth fire spirit vein. He did not hide the joy on his face at all. Gong Sunling was very curious and couldn't help but ask, "What's going to happen down there?" Good stuff. Good stuff that's hard to come by in 1,000 years. Yang Chun laughed and kissed Gong Sunling. He gave Gong Sunling an ambiguous answer. "I can use it." Since Yang Chun was happy, Gong Sunling was naturally happy too. She didn't care what was down there. As long as Yang Chun could use it, then it was really a good thing. Gathering everyone together, Yang Chun just told everyone that this Immortal's cave, within 100 years, should not be mentioned to anyone, including Shi Kuei and Xie Sha. Of course, they all nodded their heads. Who would disobey? After taking the various materials in the Immortal's cave, the flying sword and the jade slips, the Immortal's cave was left untouched in the same place. Everyone still followed the rules when they came. They took Yang Chen's shuttle and went straight to Chunyang Palace. Of course, changing the route was for the sake of Gong Sunling's mountain river geographical map. Along the way, Yang Chun did not argue with others. As long as he encountered any monster race that appeared to block him, he would immediately change the direction and leave at high speed. This was different from going to the Immortal's cave. The white bear monster was on the way. It didn't matter if he didn't fight. It didn't matter if he went home. He could avoid it. Even with the high speed of a shuttle, the detour, and the avoidance, it took a full 2 years to return to Chunyang Palace. Along the way, Yang Chun certainly did not forget to point out his apprentice. Similarly, the cultivation of the cypress monster family was also all done. As for Yang Chun himself, he took the time on the road to absorb 2 kinds of 3rd-grade fire seeds, so that the Yin-Yang heaven-burning fire had more fire seeds, and its power was greater. Now it was only a fusion of 3rd-grade fire seeds. When it could be integrated into the 4th grade and 5th grade, it was estimated that it was time for Yang Chun to attack the Yuanying stage. A group of people returned to Chunyang Palace. Yang Chun, of course, followed the old rules and went to see his master first. Of course, Mu Bo met the master ancestor and the master's wife, but the master ancestor and the master's wife were the same person. After that, he took the cypress monster family to visit the head of the palace. The cypress monster family joined the Chunyang Palace. Yang Chun had already greeted the head of the palace and brought them back. Of course, there must be a ceremony. That's good. I'm going to take this opportunity to hold an apprenticeship ceremony in Chunyang Palace. The head of the palace looked at the 100 cypress monsters brought back by Yang Chun, and his heart was overjoyed. The strength of the tree monsters, Gue Shan Yu had fully demonstrated. So many cypress monsters, if cultivated well, they would be a force that could not be ignored in Chunyang Palace in the future. How could the head of the palace not be happy? However, Yang Chun still misjudged the plan of the head of the palace. He thought that it was just a simple ceremony inside the sect, but he did not expect that the head of the palace would actually announce it to the world. Chunyang Palace, this time with great fanfare, recruited 200 or 300 disciples of the Hall of Eccentrics at one time. Among them, there were several Yuanying stage masters, plus dozens of monster cultivators in the Jedon stage. Obviously, the disciples in the Blue Vault Mountain Immortal's cave were also counted. Nowadays, it was common for the major sect to recruit disciples of the Hall of Eccentrics. Everyone attacked everywhere and recruited monster cultivators everywhere. On the contrary, the Chunyang Palace, which first made the Hall of Eccentrics, had been quiet and there was no movement, which made people very surprised. The original Chunyang Palace, which had surpassed the ancestral system at this time in the eyes of other sect, had become a conservative element, which made people feel a sense of not knowing whether to laugh or cry. But this also showed the strength of the Taishaman. It cannot be helped that the old tiger was still strong. A skinny camel was still bigger than a horse. Even if the Taishaman suffered heavy losses, they still had a powerful force that Chunyang Palace could not match in the promotion of the Hall of Eccentrics to recruit monster cultivators. If Chunyang Palace began to promote the recruitment of monster cultivators, it would definitely be besieged by countless sects, and maybe the whole sect would be destroyed. However, the Taishaman were determined to promote it, but it was like a group of ants. The road was smooth. Even if there were some opposition voices, they were quickly annihilated in silence. Now that the Chunyang Palace recruited disciples of the Hall of Eccentrics, it became a normal thing. Just because the various sects recruited disciples of the Hall of Eccentrics, many sects' strength was also greatly increased. The palace master held a ceremony with great fanfare. It was also for others to see, so that they should not underestimate Chunyang Palace. After settling the Cypress monster family, the palace master naturally talked to Yang Chun about the marriage proposal. The result was naturally not surprising, and the palace master was also unprecedentedly satisfied. After narrating the process, he looked at Yang Chun and happily asked, "When do you think it is appropriate to hold the wedding? We will hold it at that time." Chapter 802. It was impossible for the head of the palace to not be happy. These days were the most comfortable and the most prestigious days in the memory of the head of the palace. Yang Chun was not there, so those masters who came to ask for alchemy naturally went to the Chunyang Palace. In the past, Chunyang Palace must receive the masters of the Deshang stage in awe and trepidation. Now some people were still not in the list. Whether the head of the palace would see them or not depended on the mood at the time. This huge change, how could it not make the Chunyang Palace excited? In particular, the hundreds of heads lined up at the gate of the mountain made many people's faces change. At the same time, it was also the best gift for many masters to come to the mountain. Now, where would anyone dare to discuss the killer business of dealing with Yangchun? When they heard the two words Yangchun, no matter how powerful the killer was, they would directly close the door. Who would look for trouble and turn their own head into a gift for some masters to please the Chunyang Palace? If some killer groups pressed down from the top to the bottom and said that there was no way to push it away, those who dared to touch this name, they were really impatient to live. Yangchun still didn't know these things. Now he just listened to the head of the palace saying that the marriage proposal had been completed, and his heart was naturally happy. However, Yangchun also knew that his own marriage was of great importance and also needed to see the arrangement of the sect, so he gave the right to decide to the head of the palace. When the head of the palace thinks it is appropriate, then it will be done at that time. Even if he became a 5th-grade alchemist master, Yangchun had never lost his etiquette in front of the head of the palace, and he was as respectful as ever. This kind of excellent disciple with both ability and virtue, the head of the palace simply liked him more and more. Well, then wait for a few decades. Let the sect hold the grandest wedding for you. The head of the palace laughed. The disciple was so outstanding. The sect naturally could not lose face. It must be grand. Next, the head of the palace introduced the masters who came to ask for alchemy during the absence of Yangchun. In short, for the time being, in addition to Taishaman, several other big sects, including the Blue Cloud sect and the Green Jade Immortal Island, plus the 5 Elements sect and the Chinquin sect, all had high-level officials come forward, hoping that Yangchun could help refine medicinal pills. Several large overseas rogue cultivator alliances also had requirements. As for some small sect, as long as there was a master of the Deshang stage, they basically came to ask for alchemy. Some masters among the rogue cultivators also came in an endless stream. All the sect people were respectful to Chunyang Palace. The sudden change of status even made many Chunyang Palace disciples extremely uncomfortable. From being ignored and even oppressed to slowly, some people began to treat them equally, if for at least 100 years. However, it only took a few days for everyone to go from being treated equally to being as passionate as fire. It made people feel at a loss. All of this is because of you, Yangchun. The head of the palace was not stingy with his own praise. You are the best disciple of Chunyang Palace, and Chunyang Palace is proud of you. This is the disciple's duty. Yangchun did not claim credit. He was still so humble. I am waiting for the day when Taishaman also bow their heads. The head of the palace said with infinite expectations. The Taishaman plotted to annex Chunyang Palace and blew up the mountain gate of Chunyang Palace. This kind of shame and humiliation. Although Yangchun also blew up the mountain gate of Taishaman, it was not easy for the head of the palace to extinguish his hatred. Yangchun could also feel the mood change of the head of the palace. However, for Yangchun, the elimination of the Taishaman was also his wish. At this point, there was no conflict with the head of the palace. After bidding farewell to the head of the palace, Yangchun came to the residence of Gui Shanyu with the old patriarch of the Cypress Monsters. This trip was to introduce the patriarch to Gui Shanyu and see if the old tree demon had the intention to accept an apprentice. Sure enough, after seeing the old patriarch, the old tree demon suddenly had an idea, and the old patriarch was honored to become the first apprentice of the Chunyang Palace Hall of Eccentrics. Yangchun brought back the refining experience of the owner of the Immortal's Cave. As expected by Yangchun, Gao Yu and Wang Yong regarded it as a treasure. They never put it down and have been studying it. He thought that the days in the sect would be very peaceful, but what Yangchun did not expect was that his wishful thinking was obviously extravagant. From the second day after Yangchun's return, people kept coming to visit. For Yangchun, these people had to be met. They were all masters. With the current status of Yangchun, sometimes it was really not good to meet them, so as not to give people a feeling of arrogance. These people came one after another. apparently knowing the news of Yang Chen's return to Chunyang Palace. It was estimated that someone had been staring at the movements of Chunyang Palace. Everyone wanted to be able to meet Yang Chen. Even if they couldn't let Yang Chen start alchemy immediately, at least they had to get familiar with him. In the face of this enthusiastic visit, Yang Chen could only smile and greet them. All the people who came were seniors. All of them came personally, and none of them were replaced by the younger generation. Everyone who came was not empty-handed. Knowing that Yang Chen liked to collect fire seeds, almost everyone came with more or less a few kind of fire seeds. Without saying a word, they left them to Yang Chen. In less than a month, Yang Chen received at least 500 or 600 kinds of fire seeds below the 3rd grade. These were just greeting gifts. They were not too precious. It was conceivable that one day, when Yang Chen really started to refine medicinal pills, what kind of gifts would he receive? Even in the immortal world, alchemists have always been so precious. Yang Chen understood this, so after declining these greeting gifts left by everyone, Yang Chen did not hesitate to accept them. As for the requirements for alchemy for these seniors, he still had to discuss with the head of the palace. Who was first and who was last, they could even communicate with each other in private. Yang Chen would not make a decision for them. The masters who came to visit also knew that Yang Chen was not refusing, but letting them decide the order of priority. Everyone came to the door at the same time, either to fight or to pay enough price to let the other party retreat. However, the most fundamental thing was to please Yang Chen. In any case, there would be no harm in having a good relationship with Yang Chen. Many people began to rack their brains to figure out Yang Chen's hobbies. Some people even learned that Yang Chen was going to be engaged with 4 people at the same time. They vaguely felt that Yang Chen liked beautiful women and began to search around. After hearing this news, Yang Chen himself was a little bit dumbfounded. When did he become a pervert? The person who sent the fire seeds was a small vein of Yang Chen, but some people were racking their brains to get more secret things from another channel that were closer to Yang Chen's mind. A certain disciple of the Taishaman seemed to have been disliked by Yang Chen and promised spirit stones to kill him, but there has been no results so far. Chapter 803. Yang Lan's life was like hell. Although people in the Taishaman should be safe in theory, he didn't feel any sense of security. Someone offered a reward for Yang Lan's life with spirit stones. Yang Lan knew that this must be Yang Chen. In addition to the blatant display of killing intent in front of Yang Chen, he has always been a man with his tail between his legs in the Taishaman. He did not offend anyone in the sect to the point of killing him. There was no one but Yang Chen. At first, Yang Lan did not take this kind of thing to heart. As long as he was not a fool, he would not take this kind of reward. Just for a few pounds of spirit stones, he would come to the Taishaman to kill the Taishaman disciples. That was something that a fool would do. But the development of things quickly changed. With the improvement of the reward, Yang Lan also began to panic. When he didn't care before, he could still go out to practice around the Taishaman, and there was no danger. But after the reward was improved, Yang Lan had to start being careful. Yang Chen's offer was at least 3 times the value of his level. Wealth moves people's hearts. Even among the cultivators, this was an unbreakable truth. Law, earth companion, and wealth. Wealth was also a great aid to cultivation. From that time on, Yang Lan would not easily leave the Taishaman's territory. Even if he had to go out, he would be careful and always be prepared to be attacked. He would be extremely cautious and careful. Fortunately, what he worried about did not happen. Even if the Taishaman sect suffered misfortune, it was still a big sect that dominated the Dao sections. No one dared to hit the Taishaman disciples in broad daylight. Yang Lan was worried and couldn't help but start to think about finding a solid backer for himself. The young sect master, Li Heng, became the thick thigh that Yang Lan wanted to hold. It was said that the young sect master was the illegitimate son of the current sect master, and he would inherit the great unity of the Taishaman in the future. His status was respected and his future was boundless. It was absolutely not wrong to follow the young sect master. However, it was not so easy to hold the thick thighs of the young sect master. After Yang Lan studied it for a long time, he made the decision to sacrifice his sister, Yang Lan. His brother Yang Lan was the hope of the Yang family. Yang Lan naturally couldn't watch his brother in danger. Although it was against his will, he had to accept Yang Lan's arrangement and wait for the opportunity to approach the young sect master. Under Yang Lan's guidance, after a few small means, he was slightly favored in front of the young sect master and had a certain status. At this moment, when Yang Lan thought that he had a backer and was no longer afraid of any killer, the big bad news suddenly came. The young sect master was actually possessed by the devil when he was cultivating. Although he didn't know what cultivation technique the young sect master was cultivating, it would be very troublesome if he went berserk. He would often faint without any warning. It was fine when he was idle, but sometimes he would suddenly lose consciousness in the process of cultivation. This would immediately cause his spiritual power to go out of control and his divine sense to scatter. He would always be seriously injured. If it weren't for someone staring at him all the time, maybe one day he would not know when he would die. In this regard, Yang Lan almost wanted to ask the heaven. He had already paid the price of his sister's innocence and became the young sect master's Taoist companion. How could he let the young sect master suffer this upheaval? Could it be that it was because of his double cultivation with his own sister? Yang Lan thought so, and even several elders who value the young sect master thought so. Poor Yang Lan was directly sent to the bottom of the Taishaman, and even Yang Lan, his brother, was implicated. Originally, Yang Lan was asked to come forward to buy Yang Chun last time, but Yang Lan forced Yang Chun to the opposite side without saying a word. This errand was not very good. In addition, the top management had to bow to Yang Chun on the secret key, which made the top management unhappy. With Yang Lan as a lead, the top management was also displeased with Yang Lan. The top management of the Taishaman were not good at playing tricks. The little tricks that Yang Lan played to get Yang Lan close to the young sect master were seen by several elders at a glance. If it weren't for the cultivation method of a young sect master that no one had ever practiced, and it couldn't be completely blamed on Yang Lan, maybe those elders would have already looked at Yang Lan. When the roof leaks, it rains overnight. When the boat arrives at the middle of the river, it is too late to mend the leak. At this time, Yang Chun once again raised the reward. This time, not to mention the killers outside, even some people in the sect would be tempted. People's hearts were unpredictable. Yang Lan felt that there was no one around who could be trusted. Even if he was among the Taishamen, everyone he saw seemed to be a guy who wanted to deal with him to collect the reward. The huge fear made him tense all the time, and he didn't even dare to close his eyes when he slept. Even when he was cultivating, Yang Lan only dared to cultivate in the most obvious way. He didn't even dare to enter the deep level of meditation, for fear that he would be unknowingly picked up when he was practicing. Restless eating, restless sleeping, sleepless at night. This was Yang Lan's current state of life. If it weren't for the foundation stage, maybe he would have become a madman under this huge pressure. But Yang Lan hated that he was already a madman. At least a madman would not have any worries. There would be no fear, and no one would try to deal with him. As the news that Yang Chun had become a 5th-grade alchemist master slowly spread from the top and gradually reached the ears of ordinary cultivators, Yang Lan could no longer support the fear of despair. The whole person seemed to have become an empty shell. At this time, not to mention that Yang Chun used spirit stones as a reward, he even just needed a word and a meaning to let others understand. Naturally, there would be countless people who would come up to kill Yang Lan to win the favor of Yang Chun. There was a person in front of him who paid close attention to Yang Lan. This person was the head of the Wine Immortal house that Yang Chun had been cooperating with, Senior Jiuxian. Several of Yang Chun's previous rewards were issued through the Wine Immortal house. Therefore, Jiuxian was very clear about who the initiator of this reward was. But with the identity of Jiuxian, he would not go to the trouble of a junior in the foundation stage for a few pounds of spirit stones. Since Yang Chun gave a high reward, naturally, some people would be greedy for the reward. At first, Senior Jiuxian did not take this matter to heart, but after the news that Yang Chun had become a 5th-grade alchemist master spread, all the information related to Yang Chun became the focus of Senior Jiuxian's attention. Soon, his attention was focused on Yang Lan. This guy actually let Yang Chun use a reward more than 10 times the market price to kill him. Obviously, he had offended Yang Chun badly. At this time, Senior Jiuxian certainly hoped to have better contact with Yangchen. Naturally, a weighty meeting gift was essential. Yang Lan, who made Yangchen hate, was a very good gift. Chapter 804. Of course, Yang Lan didn't know that there were people who he couldn't afford to provoke staring at him. However, he was now in a state of panic. Even among the Taishamen, he lived in fear every day. Who could have thought that a little Jiedan stage disciple of a second-rate sect could suddenly become a fifth-grade alchemist master in less than a few decades? If he knew this, why did he do it? He and Yang Chun were fellow countrymen. Yang Lan remembered his arrogant performance when he saw Yang Chen at that time and felt like slapping himself in the face. At that time, Yang Chun had already shown the strength that the top leaders of Taishamen wanted to recruit. How could he be blinded by lard and want to put him to death? If he had carefully recruited Yang Chen at that time, he would also be a person with great merit. Even if Yang Chen became a fifth-grade alchemist master, he would have to think about the benefits of his recommendation. Wouldn't such a big thigh be more comfortable than any young sect master? If he had given his sister, Yang Lan, to Yang Chen at that time, not to mention in Taishamen, he could walk sideways in the entire Dao sects. Infinite remorse made Yang Lan want to dig a pit and bury himself. A series of stupid moves led to him having to face the killing situation that may appear at any time. He wanted to cry, but had no tears. But in addition to remorse, Yang Lan also had an anger that could not be vented. Who was Yang Chun? When he was in Yangjia village, he was just a little child of old Master Yang and a tenant farmer. He was thrown out at the gate of Taishamen because he was a country bumpkin. Such a lowly thing actually became a disciple of Chunyang Palace. If he was mediocre, it would be fine. How could he be so successful in a second-rate sect? Even the top leaders of Taishamen were tempted. Why? He was carefully trained by old Master Yang since he was a child. He was literate. When he was a prospective outer sect disciple, he was born with a few more advantages than those bumpkins. He successfully became an outer sect disciple, and then he became an inner sect disciple. But how could the descendant of a bumpkin have higher achievements than him? The inner jealousy made Yang Lan hate Yang Chen more and more. He hated that he could not break Yang Chen's body into pieces. However, he was only at the foundational level. Against Yang Chen, only death awaited him. It must be said that the wine Immortal was also a good hand to figure out people's minds. Yang Chen would rather use spirit stones to reward Yang Chen instead of speaking directly. He knew that Yang Chen didn't want Yang Lan to die too quickly. Senior Jiuxian was now at the peak yuanying stage, and naturally he was also envious of the questioning inner heart pill. Although the cooperation with Chunyang Palace was good, some trivial news could not be exchanged for questioning inner heart pills. Moreover, how precious the questioning inner heart pill was, I am afraid that even if it was Yang Chen, it would not be so easy to refine it. With the intelligence system of the Wine Immortal House, the Blue Cloud Sect, and the Green Jade Immortal Island getting the questioning inner heart pill from Chunyang Palace, naturally, could not be hidden from the Wine Immortal. However, with the financial resources and friendship of the Wine Immortal House, for the time being, it was still unable to come up with a satisfactory reward for the Chunyang Palace Yang Chen, and it was also unable to come up with those 10,000 years of medicinal materials. Now there was a great opportunity in front of the Wine Immortal Senior. As long as Yang Lan could be beautiful, he could naturally enter the eyes of Yang Chen. As for the questioning inner heart pill, in fact, the Wine Immortal himself only needed one. Yang Chen could refine about 10 in one furnace. That was still in the past. Now that Yang Chen was a fifth-grade alchemist master, it was estimated that he could make more pills. From the hands of a big sect, he could deduct one for him. In Taishamen, the Wine Immortal also had some connections. The Wine Immortal House could mediate freely in the major sects, relying on these connections. The Wine Immortal spoke and wanted to move an unpopular junior of Taishamen. Naturally, many people were willing to serve. Yang Lan's days fell into hell even more. Even among the Taishamen, there were many people who would come to take care of him from time to time. Everyone's status was higher than his, and the things they wanted to do were very reasonable. He did not dare to not do what he was told. However, These people's orders seemed simple, but every one of them required him to go out. If it wasn't to gather some materials, it was to send some letters. Every single task required him to contribute to the sect. It was a complete mess. However, Yanglan really didn't want to go out, but he had to go out. On the one hand, the sect's disobedience was a capital offense. On the other hand, he might be targeted by a killer when he went out, which was also a capital offense. Under the boundless fear, Yanglan could only go out with courage. Unfortunately, no matter how careful Yanglan was, under the care of the Wine Immortal house, how could his whereabouts be kept a secret? Several so-called killers arranged by the Wine Immortal soon found him. A junior in the peak of the foundation stage, a few killers could easily kill Yanglan 10 times, but the Wine Immortal just let them scare him, let Yanglan be injured, and then every time he escaped with his life. Several times in succession, when Yanglan heard the order to let him go out in the sect, he would almost immediately shiver reflexively. The feeling of life and death hanging by a thread. He didn't want to try it again. When the order came down, Yanglan would rather violate the rules of the sect, and he was not willing to go out again. After several consecutive times, the Law Enforcement Hall of Taishaman found Yanglan. From the information grasped by the Law Enforcement Hall, Yanglan, a foundation stage disciple, couldn't even complete some of the simplest sect tasks. And later it wasn't that he couldn't complete the task at all, and even he didn't accept the task of the sect at all. What was the use of such a disciple? Of course, the Law Enforcement Hall of the sect also listened to Yanglan's discrimination. However, no matter how they checked, it was impossible to say that the simplest task of collecting materials outside the sect given to him by the assigned disciples was deliberately framing him. As for the high bounty for Yanglan's life outside, it was even more nonsense. How could the Wine Immortal not take care of everything? At the time of design, all the bounties against Yanglan had been withdrawn. This was issued through the Wine Immortal house. Of course, withdrawing it was a matter of a sentence. After the Law Enforcement Hall inspected it, there was no favoritism. It confirmed that there was indeed a high bounty against Yanglan before, but it has now been withdrawn. Yanglan refused to complete the task of the sect for more than 2 years after the revocation of the bounty, and he would be punished by the Law Enforcement Hall of the sect. Let the Law Enforcement Hall of Taishaman punish Yanglan, and this process will continue. This is more painful than Yangchen's high bounty for Yanglan's life, especially the knife from the inside, the knife from the people around him, the feeling of stabbing people, even more painful than the enemy stabbing himself. Yanglan was trapped in such pain. Chapter 805. When the Wine Immortal saw Yang Chun, he didn't say much. He just gave Yang Chun a piece of jade slip, which recorded Yanglan's days over the years and the punishment he suffered from the Taishaman Law Enforcement Hall. Yang Chun was very surprised, but he immediately realized that the Wine Immortal predecessor was showing goodwill to himself, and he did it without any trace, but it was better than his own means. The ginger was really old and spicy. Yang Chun couldn't help but admire it. The Wine Immortal's approach was indeed more satisfying than killing Yanglan. In his previous life, Yanglan relied on the power of the Taishaman's sect to bully Yang Chun. Now, in turn, he used the hands of the Taishaman to punish Yanglan. This was really an eye for an eye, which made people happy to the extreme. The things that the Wine Immortal liked, Yang Chun understood, were nothing more than 2 things. One was the Jade Dragon wine. The other was the medicinal pills that he refined himself. From the point of view of the Wine Immortal's current peak yuanying stage cultivation base, he wanted the questioning inner heart pill. The friendship between Yang Chun and the Wine Immortal was not too deep, but they also had a lot of dealings. A lot of the information that Chunyang Palace and Yang Chun needed could be obtained from the Wine Immortal house. Since the Wine Immortal predecessor did this thing that made Yang Chun feel comfortable, Yang Chun naturally did not mind getting closer to the relationship with the Wine Immortal predecessor. It was not bad for him to have a friend like Bai Shaosheng. At the moment, Yang Chun was not stingy. He directly took out 1,000 jin of the Jade Dragon wine and put it in several large wine jars and sent it over. So much Jade Dragon wine. It was enough for the Wine Immortal predecessor to not worry about his wine in the next few decades. This is some of the auxiliary wine that this younger generation junior brewed himself. Which one is most suitable for the Jade Dragon wine? I need the senior to taste it. Given the Jade Dragon wine, Yang Chun was not stingy with some of the newly brewed auxiliary wine. It was said to be newly brewed, but in fact, it has been decades of experience. For the wine Immortal, this was simply the best gift. Not to mention that the value of the Jade Dragon wine that Yang Chun gave him has far exceeded the cost of Jiu Xian's manpower. The auxiliary wine brewed by Yang Chun himself was simply an unexpected surprise. Who was Yang Chun? How could the wine brewed by a fifth-grade alchemy grandmaster be wrong? How many people could enjoy the wine brewed by Yang Chun himself? What's more, when Yang Chun met Gang Jiuxian decades ago, he said that the taste of those ordinary auxiliary wines was not enough to stimulate the delicious Jade Dragon wine. He wanted to specially brew auxiliary wines. The good things that Yang Chun gave were definitely the most coveted delicacies of the wine Immortal. Jiuxian was named after wine and naturally loved wine. When he heard Yang Chun's words, he couldn't wait to open it and taste it immediately. Fortunately, Senior Jiuxian was also the speaker of the wine Immortal house. After so many years, the shrewdness has long been tempered. He happily accepted Yang Chun's wine and did not be rude on the spot. Jiuxian also knew that this was the reward given to him by Yang Chun, indicating that he did a good job in this matter. For this pile of wine Immortals, this was better news. Yang Chun accepted his kindness and even gave him his favorite wine in return. For Yang Chun's medicinal pills, Jiuxian never thought that he would get it because of such a small thing. His purpose was to have a better relationship with Yang Chun so that he could speak in front of Yang Chun in the future. Now that the purpose was fully achieved, how could it not make Senior Jiuxian overjoyed? However, Yang Chun had another idea. Looking at the happy appearance of Senior Jiuxian, his heart suddenly moved. Senior Jiuxian was a rogue cultivator. His family had a big foundation and recruited a lot of rogue cultivators. The Wine Immortal house was now also a force that could not be ignored among the cultivators. If this force could fall to the Chunyang Palace, there would be more confidence in dealing with the Taishaman in the future. After thinking about it, Yang Chun still felt that there was an opportunity in front of him. Maybe he should talk to Senior Jiuxian. Senior, this younger generation junior has some words. I don't know if I should say it. Yang Chun hesitated for a moment, deliberated over his words, and slowly said, after thinking about it, this younger generation junior still feels that it is not good to say it. Senior, the younger generation junior, is joking. If the senior feels that it is not appropriate, then this younger generation junior did not say it. As he said this, Yang Chun took out some wine tools from his Chinquan bag and took out a jar of Jade Dragon wine that had been prepared. He filled it for Senior Jiuxian and filled it for himself. The two of them touched their glasses and drank it. Just say it. There's no need to say it. With the wine in his mouth, Senior Jiuxian's words were also a lot more carefree. For Yang Chun's politeness, he didn't care and let him say it directly. After Yang Chun arranged a few restrictions, he carefully asked, Senior, this younger generation junior is very curious. With the actions of the senior, no matter which big sect you join, there will be people who will welcome you. How can the senior never consider it? Jiuxian's life experience was clean. Yang Chun's previous life was clear, so he would ask this question. To win over Jiuxian, of course, he had to know whether he was willing or not. Oh, do you think that if this old man enters a big sect, people will treat this old man as a treasure? Jiuxian smiled bitterly. Yang Chun was stunned, and then suddenly realized. With the cultivation base of Jiuxian, he could be accepted by people, but it was impossible to become a senior member of a big sect. Relying on the Jiuxian house, Jiuxian predecessor could win a place for himself, but no big sect would be willing to have such an intelligence system in the hands of a person who became a monk halfway. Naturally, they would try their best to infiltrate and then achieve the goal of complete control of the sect. In this way, the status of Jiuxian predecessor would not be so famous. Seeing that Jiuxian would rather be outside, he knew that he was not a person who was willing to be under others. It was naturally understandable to have such a choice. If it was a small sect, it would be impossible to fight against those big sects. Such an intelligent system, if it was in the hands of a small sect, it was a road to disaster. It was better to be independent like now. No one was close to anyone, no one was biased, and it was safer. Among the cultivators, Jiuxian House was actually not easy to survive. I don't know what the senior thinks of my Chunyang Palace. Yang Chen hesitated and finally said it. Jiuxian was stunned, and then began to think about it. Compared with the big sect, Chunyang Palace would naturally not be strong. If he joined, he would definitely be put in an important position, which was in line with his requirements. Moreover, Chunyang Palace is now cooperating happily with the Blue Cloud sect and the Green Jade Immortal Island, and its strength has begun to expand. Even if it was a big sect, it would not dare to easily deal with Chunyang Palace. Especially after Yang Chen became a 5th-grade alchemy master, countless people flattered him. His status was naturally more and more stable, and his future was boundless. If he joined Chunyang Palace, it seemed that he could meet the requirements of Jiuxian, and there would be no worries of other sect. It seemed to be a good choice. Soon, Jiuxian's eyes lit up. Chapter 806. Should he join Chunyang Palace? The Wine Immortal was thinking about this issue. Obviously, there were benefits to joining, especially for him personally. It was of great benefit. Not to mention anything else, the questioning inner heart pill alone was enough to make him tempted. Not to mention, if he was successfully promoted to the Deshang stage, he would only be valued more in Chunyang Palace, instead of being marginalized like other major sect. For the Wine Immortal House, it was also a great opportunity. The resources of Chunyang Palace now made people jealous. Others didn't know, but how could the Wine Immortal House, which specialized in selling intelligence, not know? If they joined Chunyang Palace, at least those rogue cultivators could have a lot of opportunities. In particular, after joining Chunyang Palace, these disciples of the Wine Immortal House would have long-term benefits. Once the Wine Immortal passed away, they would not lose their backbone, decline from then on, and become a poor, struggling rogue cultivator again. These disciples of the Wine Immortal House were absolutely willing to join Chunyang Palace at this time. They would not be looked down upon, and now the status of the disciples of Chunyang Palace outside was absolutely enviable. At present, Chunyang Palace was rising, but it had not yet fully risen, and it needed to absorb strength from all aspects. If they could absorb the Wine Immortal House, it would also be a great opportunity for Chunyang Palace. And with Yang Chen, a 5th-grade alchemist master, even if the Wine Immortal joined Chunyang Palace, there was a very legitimate reason. He lacked the questioning inner heart pill, and Chunyang Palace could provide it, so he couldn't resist the temptation. As for the Blue Cloud sect and the Green Jade Immortal Island, they were originally cooperating with Chunyang Palace, and they were happy to see Chunyang Palace grow stronger. Secondly, even if they had the questioning inner heart pill, at most, they could only give one to the Wine Immortal. There were a lot of Deshang stage and Yuanying stage masters in the sect, and it was not enough for each person to get one. How could they be as generous as Chunyang Palace? This reason could be taken to the sect master of any small sect, let alone a small Wine Immortal house. At this moment, the Wine Immortal almost wanted to agree directly. However, he was still reserved and forced himself to endure it. After all, the reason why the Wine Immortal house could become an intelligence dealer was because of its relatively independent position. If he became a member of Chunyang Palace, then other sect would inevitably have concerns when dealing with him, which would affect the business of Wine Immortal House. If the Wine Immortal House doesn't have this convenient identity to obtain intelligence, then his own status will definitely be weakened. If Senior is not willing to join Chunyang Palace in the open, in fact, it can also be a way for us to establish a closer cooperative relationship. Yang Chen saw Jiuxian's hesitation and said again, a closer working relationship? Jiuxian was obviously more interested in Yang Chen's statement. After all, there was the temptation of a good thing, like the questioning inner heart pill. Jiuxian was still very happy to maintain cooperation with Chunyang Palace. For example, all the information obtained by the Wine Immortal House can be copied to Chunyang Palace in advance. Yang Chen said with a smile, when necessary, Chunyang Palace will also provide certain protection for the Wine Immortal House. Listening to Yang Chen's words, Jiao Xian's eyes widened. All the information was copied to Chunyang Palace. Wasn't this Chunyang Palace the Wine Immortal House, and the Wine Immortal House was Chunyang Palace? Of course, our two sides are only in a cooperative relationship. Yang Chun smiled and said, I will pay the necessary rewards and will never break the rules of the Wine Immortal House. Paying for the information was originally the business of the Wine Immortal House. Of course, this was not a violation of the rules. However, what kind of revenge could make Jiao Xian make such a decision? Even Jiao Xian himself was a little nervous. In Yang Chen's hand, there was a jade box, and he slowly pushed it in front of Jiao Xian. Looking at this jade box, Jiao Xian's breathing was also hurried. Even in the peak yuanying stage, after guessing what might be in this jade box, he couldn't help but be nervous. This is a questioning inner heart pill. Yang Chun directly broke the contents of the jade box as a deposit. It's just a questioning inner heart pill. It's not a good thing. Senior can accept it first. When this junior refines more questioning inner heart pills in the future, I will give 2 to the Wine Immortal House. Yang Chun released his hand and left the jade box in front of Jiao Xian. He slowly asked, 3 questioning inner heart pills before and after. I don't know if we can reach a deal. Jiao Xian's heart was already in his throat. In this jade box, it was the questioning inner heart pill that he dreamed of. Perhaps it was the life-saving pill for him to break through the current bottleneck and enter the realm of the Deshang stage. But after listening to Yang Chen's statement, the Wine Immortal was even more shocked and shocked. Not a good thing. Jiao Xian almost wanted to ask Yang Chen aloud. If the questioning inner heart pill was not a good thing, then what was a good thing? These days, how many masters had contacted Chunyang Palace before and after? What was everyone for? Wasn't it the questioning inner heart pill? Before, because Yang Chun and Chunyang Palace had never announced that they were willing to make alchemy for outsiders. Now that it has been announced, of course, everyone wanted to ask for a few. So many masters valued the questioning inner heart pill that hundreds of Deshang stage masters and thousands of yuanying stage masters needed. In the eyes of Yang Chun, it was not a good thing. However, it was normal for Yang Chun to say this. As Yang Chun said, the questioning inner heart pill was just a questioning inner heart pill. He could also refine the second-grade questioning inner heart pill. As far as Jiao Xian knew, among the questioning inner heart pills that Yang Chun refined for the Blue Cloud sect and the Green Jade Immortal Island, there were a few second-grade questioning inner heart pills. That was still a few decades ago. Yang Chun had now become a 5th-grade alchemist master. Naturally, his alchemy level was higher, and it was not impossible for him to refine more second-grade questioning inner heart pills. Second-grade questioning inner heart pill. If a questioning inner heart pill was not enough to make a breakthrough, then the second-grade questioning inner heart pill could absolutely guarantee it. What's more, there were still 2 of them. The hope of his ascension and tribulation depended on these 2 second-grade questioning inner heart pills. Senior Jiao Xian's heart had been stirred up, and the sound made him feel big. However, the Wine Immortal didn't feel any shame at all. Not to mention that he was a peak yuanying stage cultivator. Anyone else, even the sect master of the greatest heaven sect, may not be able to resist such temptation. Who doesn't want to ascend in the day? If there was no way and there was no hope, who would be willing to be trapped in the yuanying stage or even the Deshang stage for a lifetime and slowly die of old age? The price given by Yang Chun was really exciting. Senior, 1 questioning inner heart pill, 2 second-grade questioning inner heart pills. If Senior still feels that there is something wrong, just say it. Yang Chun struck while the iron was hot and said, however, if the price is too high, then the deal can only be broken. Chapter 807. The sudden business made the Wine Immortal unable to make a decision directly, but he was reluctant to give up this opportunity. You must know that this was the moment when he was closest to the questioning inner heart pill, and the 3 questioning inner heart pills, said to be the reward for the Wine Immortal House, were actually for the Wine Immortal himself. This point was well known to the Wine Immortal. He got the benefits, but the Wine Immortal House did not have much income. This matter was naturally not easy to explain. Even if the Wine Immortal was the founder of the Wine Immortal House, it would not make sense. In the previous transaction, the Jade Dragon wine was converted into spirit stones for the wine immortal to buy with his own spirit stones. That was to say, Chunyang Palace used spirit stones to buy the information of the wine immortal house. If this questioning inner heart pill was also settled in this way, the wine immortal himself did not know how many spirit stones he would have to pay to get a questioning inner heart pill. You must know that there were a lot of spirit stones in the wine immortal house, but there was only one questioning inner heart pill, and there were no other branches. Moreover, with the scarcity of the medicinal materials for the questioning inner heart pill, the price of the questioning inner heart pill was definitely an astronomical figure. Even many masters of the Dashang stage have planned to unite and are willing to jointly collect the 10,000-year medicinal materials needed for the questioning inner heart pill, and then refine a furnace of questioning inner heart pill. In this case, the difficulty of getting a questioning inner heart pill could be imagined, let alone two of which were second grade. After hesitating for a long time, the wine immortal finally gritted his teeth and made a decision. Looking at Yang Chun, he asked with some discussion, if the wine immortal house secretly joins Chunyang Palace, is it possible? What kind of secret method? Yang Chun raised his eyebrows and asked. This old man and several core principals have joined Chunyang Palace, but we are all secretive, and the other people in the wine immortal house do not know. All the intelligence, of course, will be copied to Chunyang Palace. How about it? The wine immortal said his own way, looking at Yang Chun, waiting for Yang Chun's decision. In the end, the wine immortal also added a sentence, when I join Chunyang Palace, I can make a hard oath and be loyal to Chunyang Palace. Just when these principles are needed, they can also get the support of Chunyang Palace. Why not? Yang Chun was overjoyed. The merger of the wine immortal house originally wanted their perfect intelligence system. Now the goal was achieved, and it did not affect the business of the wine immortal house. Naturally, it was a happy situation. So, Senior, follow me to see the head of the palace. Soon, the two appeared in front of the head of the palace. After listening to the narration of Yang Chun, and then the addition of the wine immortal, the shock on the face of the head of the palace could not be described with words. The wine immortal house, which could almost be said to be the #1 intelligence system among the cultivators, covering the organization of Taoism, devil, and demon, was actually under the command of Chunyang Palace. Although it couldn't be said to the public, all the information was copied to Chunyang Palace. For Chunyang Palace, it was like there were countless eyes outside, watching everything that happened in the mortal world for the sect. Was there anything more shocking and fantastical than this? For a time, the head of the palace was only left dumbfounded and couldn't say a word. If it weren't for Yang Chun looking at the head of the palace, such a rudeness was somewhat unjustifiable. He coughed a few times to call back the attention of the head of the palace. I'm sorry. This happy event came too suddenly. I can't help but be surprised. The head of the palace immediately apologized to the wine immortal. But such a surprise also reflected the importance of the head of the palace to the wine immortal house, so that the wine immortal could not help but feel a sense of importance. Soon, the head of the palace summoned all the elders to discuss. When they heard the news that the wine immortal house was merged into the Chunyang Palace, almost all the elders had the kind of expression of surprise, almost the same as the head of the palace. Of course, welcome. Several elders directly stated that with the wine immortal house, the Chunyang Palace was like a tiger with wings. This kind of good thing would be pushed out. That was a fool. What's more, the wine immortal and the core of the wine immortal house would make a hard oath, which was more reassuring. The wine immortal is an elder of my Chunyang Palace and can participate in Chunyang Palace discussions at any time. The head of the palace immediately gave the wine immortal the highest treatment. Now, the head of the palace, was the elder who could discuss matters. The position given to the wine immortal was definitely the core position of the Chunyang Palace. As for the operation of the wine immortal house, it was naturally the nephew who carried the lantern. As usual, no one would change anything. It was just that the information that was originally given to the wine immortal would be copied by the wine immortal himself and sent to the Chunyang Palace. Those who joined the Chunyang Palace were naturally the core disciples. The head of the palace directly promised that as long as their cultivation base was improved, There would be medicinal pills for the realm they reached. Inner sensing pill, questioning inner heart pill. Chunyang Palace would never be stingy. This time, it could also be regarded as solving the worries of these core masters of the Wine Immortal House. They only had to focus on running the Wine Immortal House and developing and growing it. In the future, their cultivation would have the secret support of Chunyang Palace. Now it seemed that not to mention the Yuanying Dashang stage. Even if they ascended to heaven, it would not be a problem. The master of the Wine Immortal House naturally had the Wine Immortal Elder to settle down, and the Chunyang Palace had also arranged everything for the senior Wine Immortal. Later, everyone's eyes were once again focused on Yang Chun. Just a few days after returning from the outside, Yang Chun actually brought such a surprise to the sect. The elders looked at Yang Chun's eyes, and they were almost blooming. Was there anyone who made people more speechless than this disciple? Even if others lived for a lifetime, it was estimated that Yang Chun had done more great things in the past 100 years. Next, the senior Wine Immortal first gave everyone some recent sensitive intelligence, especially for Yang Chun and Chunyang Palace, which was a more detailed explanation. Some Dashang stage masters wanted to unite to ask for the questioning inner heart pill, which was normal and not worth making a fuss about. Several big sects also planned to cooperate with Chunyang Palace. These are not news. What attracted everyone's attention the most were two pieces of news. One was the attitude of the Taishaman. It seemed that the high-level members of the Taishaman sect were divided. Some people wanted Yang Chun to help treat the injured Dashang stage elders and young sect masters, and by the way, ask for some questioning inner heart pills. The other part of the hardliners clamored that it would be better to destroy the Chunyang Palace and capture Yang Chun. The two sides quarreled, and there was no conclusion so far. The other news came from an unknown place. Yang Chun could become a 5th-grade alchemist master at this age. Some people speculated that Yang Chun had obtained the secret inheritance of a master of alchemy. Many people wanted to get this inheritance from Yang Chun's hands, and some people even had the idea of killing him. In particular, some people even clamored to destroy Yang Chun. They couldn't let him outshine others in the mortal world and step on other alchemy masters. Chapter 808. It was normal for Taishaman to have internal differences. After all, Taishaman used to dominate the Taoist sect. When did they put down their pride to ask others for help? Even when Yang Chun helped them to interpret the secret key last time, they were still arrogant, but they paid the price of some financial resources. If they wanted to save people this time, they must use Yang Chun's 5th-grade medicinal pill. Everyone knew how difficult it was to be a 5th-grade alchemist master. Maybe the last 5th-grade medicinal pill was also refined by Yang Chun, who didn't know how many generations of dogshit luck he had. If he was asked to refine it again, it was unknown whether he could succeed or not. If a 5th-grade alchemist master was asked to do it, the financial resources were absolutely not enough. Even on the surface, the sect master or the chief elder of Taishaman had to come forward and inform Yang Chun. How could the high level of Taishaman pay a visit to a junior like this? How could the high and mighty Taishaman bear this kind of humiliation? Originally, Taishaman had been very dissatisfied with the rise of Chunyang Palace, a second-rate sect, especially when the arrangement of Taishaman and Chunyang Palace was uprooted. Although it was not known whether Chunyang Palace had already known the arrangement of Taishaman, they still suffered a loss from Chunyang Palace. Now, they had to put on a low profile to Chunyang Palace and ask a junior disciple to rescue several injured elders and young sect master of their own sect. How could this be tolerated? In the end, Taishaman were the leaders of the Taoist sect, or Chunyang Palace. The Pure Yang Palace should take the initiative to come up and flatter him. There were many people who wanted to destroy Chunyang Palace and kill Yang Chun. They had planned to kill Yang Chun and even sacrifice the lives of 6 Yuanying stage elders. They endured it for the secret key. Could it be that he had to endure it again because of the injured elder and young sect master? Speaking of it, the 3 Dashang stage elders and the young sect master were indeed very important. But could it be that for these, even the face of the Taishaman was not wanted? This time, he first lowered his head in exchange for Yang Chun to save the elder and young sect master. Then, when he wanted to kill him, something else jumped out. How could he not move? Simply kill Yang Chen once and for all. As for the injuries of the three masters of the Deshang stage, they could only endure for a few hundred years at most. After a few hundred years, they could still recover. Of course, people who didn't know the inside story wouldn't think that the young sect master was important. How could a possible illegitimate child be worth using the sect's face to exchange for? The Taishaman had never formally contacted Chunyang Palace because of the endless quarrels between the two sides. There was a dispute within the Taishaman, which was a good thing for Chunyang Palace and several other major sect sections. Everyone hated to see the Taishaman split. The second news was a bit strange. Obviously, this news was released by some unwilling alchemists. Maybe it was also related to several alchemy sect sections. For the time being, there was no further news from the Immortal house. However, many people were very curious about the fact that Yang Chun could become a 5th-grade alchemist master at this age. It was said that he had obtained a secret inheritance, which sounded very credible. An ordinary man's wealth was his own ruin, and the same was true in the world of cultivators. When most people felt that this was the case, it was inevitable that some people would have other thoughts. It was normal to have the idea of Yang Chun. It was inevitable that there would be some Yuanying stage or the Deshang stage alchemists who would use this idea. Yang Chun was now the best treasure of Chunyang Palace. The sect would not be willing to see Yang Chun have an accident in any case. Since the Immortal house got the news in this regard, the head of the palace suddenly became nervous. You should not go out for a while in recent years, stay in the sect, and cultivate. At this time, the head of the palace, regardless of the wishes of Yang Chun, directly gave him an order. It is best to collect some accurate news here in the Immortal house, and wait until this matter is thoroughly clarified. This was for the safety of Yang Chun. Yang Chun hesitated a little and accepted the order of the head of the palace. He had been out for a lot of time in recent years. It was better to calm down and cultivate well in the sect. Since he decided to stay in the sect, Yang Chun also began to determine the direction of his own cultivation. After the condensing of all attributes, the next step was the improvement of spiritual power, which could not be rushed. Yang Chen's Yin-Yang 5-element secret art was now balanced, and it was time to vigorously attack the middle Jidan stage. The body refining technique also had to continue. The realm of mountain picking strength had been completely consolidated, and he was attacking the next realm of river turning strength. He believed that he could reach it in 10 or 20 years. Speaking of the yellow turban strongman body refining technique, Yang Chun could not help but sigh at his good luck. In his previous life, he did not put this kind of stupid body refining technique in his eyes, but since he got the cultivation method of the body refining technique, he found that he still underestimated this body refining technique. Because of the harsh conditions of cultivation, many cultivators could not reach the standard of pure physical strength unless they went to the immortal world. At that point, because they ascended from a mortal world to the spiritual world, and from the spiritual world to the immortal world, after 2 ascensions, the body has become an immortal body. To cultivate this body refining technique to transform the immortal body, it was naturally difficult. Even if it took thousands of years, it was very rare for people to be able to cultivate to the 4th realm. On the contrary, Yang Chen's current mortal body was the easiest to transform. In addition, Yang Chen's body had been transformed by the life essence of countless immortals. It only took a few decades to cultivate to the 2nd realm of mountain picking strength. The strength of 10,000 Jin, mountain picking strength, river turning strength, sea turning strength, earth shaking strength, and sky raising strength corresponded to the 6 realms of the yellow turban strongman body refining technique. However, even in the heavenly court, the strongest yellow turban strongman only reached the 4th realm of sea turning strength. It has never been heard of anyone cultivating to the realm of sky raising strength. And these yellow turban strongman could only serve as the lowest shores of the heavenly court. Yang Chun now has the hope to cultivate to the 6th realm of sky raising strength within 1,000 years. This was simply a gift from heaven to Yang Chun. At the time of sea turning strength, those powerful yellow turban strongmen could resist the masters of the devil race. He really didn't know how powerful it would be when he reached the realm of sky-raising strength. The rest was the three purities secret art. Yang Chun has never stopped cultivating the three purities secret art for a day. Because of the relationship between Gao Yu and Gong Sunling's spiritual awareness double cultivation, Yang Chun does not have to worry about the trouble of splitting his spiritual awareness for the time being. However, he believed that with the deepening of Yang Chen's cultivation base, he still had to face this problem. If Yang Chun didn't want to split his spiritual awareness in this realm, it seemed that he could only consider spiritual awareness double cultivation with his other two wives, Sun Qingxue and Shan Shan. Chapter 809. As always, Yang Chun chose to retreat and cultivate. Gao Yu got the inheritance jade slip of the owner of the Immortal's cave and studied it tirelessly. At the same time, she also sacrificially refined her own dragon horn flying sword and did not retreat with Yang Chun. Gong Sunling still had to go out to experience. She now had 3 more Yuanying stage masters sacrificially refining the Mountain River geographical map for her. Naturally, the more complete the Mountain River geographical map, the better. The Dao Sect's territory must be visited at least. If possible, she would also go to the sea and go to the overseas rogue cultivator's territory. With the sharp sword array in maze, plus the high speed of the ship, not to mention the praying mantis puppet, for the time being, the safety of Gong Sunling did not need to be worried too much. Unless someone was targeting Yang Chun. But even the most stupid fool knew that moving Gong Sunling was equivalent to completely offending Yang Chun. Yang Chun's words, it was not known how many Deshang stage masters were willing to use some people's heads to make a favor. Yang Chun was alone on a spiritual vein in the Immortal's cave. Xiao Tian has now cultivated to the 6th picture. It was estimated that after all the cultivation methods of the 8 pictures were completed, the 2nd floor of the Dragon Tower could be opened and more advanced cultivation methods could be cultivated. Now Xiao Tian's body seemed to be slightly larger, and the dragon chi was more and more intense. All the flying sword in Yang Chen's hand were digested by Xiao Tian once in his belly, and there was no sword spirit. Perhaps when the 2nd floor of the Dragon Tower was opened, Yang Chun could try to let Xiao Tian collect the dragon bead in the Dragon Palace Treasure House, which was the real essence of the Dragon Palace Treasure House. It was said to be a retreat cultivation, but in fact, Yang Chun wanted to refine his own yin-yang 5 elements flying sword. The discovery of the 4th fire true essence made Yang Chun very happy, and some of the fire attribute materials found in the Immortal's cave are the best for refining the 4th fire attribute flying sword. Yang Chun took out all these materials. This would be Yang Chen's 4th fire flying sword of the great yin-yang 5 elements flying sword. On the way back, Yang Chun had already read and memorized all the jade slips left behind by the owner of the Immortal's cave. There were some things that Yang Chun could learn from. Before starting to refine the sword embryo, Yang Chun still chose to absorb all the fire seeds below the 3rd grade into the yin-yang heaven burning fire. With the absorption of enough 3rd grade fire seeds, the speed of absorbing and fusing 1st and 2nd grade fire seeds has been very fast. He can complete one in a few days. Excluding the hundreds of flames after repetition, it only took Yang Chun 2 years. And with the more fire seeds it absorbed, the yin-yang heaven-burning fire was also evolving in the direction of perfection. The powerful yin-yang heaven-burning fire fused these materials to form a sword embryo and imprinted the mark of Yang Chun. This process was completed by Yang Chun with ease. It was much easier than when he was refining the 1st with 2nd wood flying sword. It only took a short 2 years, and a very beautiful-looking 4th fire flying sword was freshly made. The perfect 4th fire attribute, coupled with the materials carefully selected by Taishaman, achieved this perfect flying sword embryo. The reason why it was still a sword embryo was that the flying sword had not been tempered by Yang Chun for a long time, and a series of follow-up work had not yet been completed, but now it could be used to fight. If it was bitten in the mouth of Xiao Tian, the 4th fire flying sword could also cut off any opponent. It was rare to calm down and retreat for a long time. Yang Chun simply did not go out, but began to carefully study and practice the experience left in the medicine nourishing gourd. Yang Chun, who had already collected enough ordinary medicinal materials, tried all kinds of medicinal materials one by one, all kinds of heat, all kinds of fusion, all kinds of techniques, with his multitasking skills, with a profound spirit furnace, in a short period of 10 years. The jade slips in the medicine nourishing gourd were carefully studied, and even the single and 2 or 3 kinds of medicinal materials were all tested. In the square of the medicine nourishing gourd, there were tens of thousands of kinds of dregs. This was the dregs of the most basic medicine that Yang Chun had personally refined, and it was also the result of Yang Chen's thorough consolidation of the most basic knowledge of alchemy in this life. At this point, Yang Chen's biggest shortcoming in alchemy has been made up, and he no longer relied on the experience of his previous life. With these solid basic knowledge, when Yang Chun tried to refine the second-grade inner sensing pill again, he felt more comfortable. Everything was under control. Any changes in the profound spirit furnace were expected by himself. Even if Yang Chun wanted which medicinal pill quality was high and which medicinal pill quality was low, he could easily control it. This kind of change, compared with Yang Chen's previous refining of medicinal pills by simply relying on the knowledge of fire control, he didn't know how many times it was more advanced. This was the realm of the alchemy master that Yang Chun wanted, rather than relying on the memory of his previous life to mix into a senior alchemy master. The old book of his previous life would always be used up. Now he had completely become a real alchemy master. The quality of the refined second-grade inner sensing pill was even higher, which was amazing. Yang Chun even felt that if he started to refine the second-grade questioning inner heart pill now, it would be more perfect. Of course, the second-grade questioning inner heart pill would also be promoted to the third grade under the effect of the profound spirit furnace. The third-grade questioning inner heart pill, if it was passed out, it would definitely make people crazy. This grade of medicinal pill, casually taking out one, was worth making people go bankrupt to get it. Now, Yang Chun was really relying on his own alchemy strength, standing at the peak of the mortal world's alchemy. After more than 10 years of retreat, Yang Chen's spiritual power has been completely raised to the level of the middle Jidan stage. If it hadn't taken decades for the full attribute Jidan, he might have reached this realm long ago. However, now that the full attribute Jidan, the speed of cultivation was faster. Yang Chun has a hunch that even without any external force, he could enter the late Jidan stage after 30 years by relying on his own cultivation. After that, he would have another 100 years, enough to reach the realm of forming his nascent soul. Now Yang Chun also has to consider the matter of forming his nascent soul in advance. The full attribute Jidan required at least 6 kinds of spiritual power Jidan, and 3 kinds of spiritual power Jidan in each of the positive and negative 5 elements. If it was forming his nascent soul, it would require more demanding conditions. It's just that even Yang Chun didn't know what kind of concept it was, and what would happen. Although the Yin and Yang 5 elements secret art was powerful, after all, it was only the legendary perfect cultivation method. Yang Chun had never been successfully cultivated before. Yang Chun himself was the pioneer of opening the furnace. What would happen? Only Yang Chun himself could explore. Everything was still unknown. However, one thing was completely certain, that is, once Yang Chun's full attribute Jidan was successful, then Yang Chun would definitely be the first person in the Yuanying stage realm. Even the masters of the peak Yuanying stage would not necessarily be able to compete with Yang Chun. Chapter 8:10. After refining 2 furnaces of first-grade questioning inner heart pills and 1 furnace of second-grade questioning inner heart pills, Yang Chun finally came out. Yang Chun's retreat was 15 years. When he was concentrating on cultivation, he didn't feel the passage of time. When he came out, he found that so much time had passed. The sect didn't seem to have changed much, but the spirit on the faces of the disciples of the sect seemed to be different, and all of them were very proud. When he saw his master, he was naturally happy. Over the years, Gao Yu had almost washed the dragon horn and started the refining work. Because of the extreme difficulty of refining, this work would last for at least a few decades. The master ancestor had also been helping. He was very satisfied with the improvement of Yang Chen's cultivation. After encouraging him, he wanted Yang Chen to make persistent efforts. When a master of the palace saw Yang Chen, he said a lot. The matters of the sect, the outside things, as long as they were related to Chunyang Palace, they were basically not left behind. In the past few years, Chunyang Palace has recruited thousands of qualified reserve disciples. After many assessments, most of the new disciples were sent to the Blue Vault Mountain Immortal's Cave. Judging from the current mountain gate of Chunyang Palace, the strength of Chunyang Palace has not improved a lot, and it is developing step by step. The Wine Immortal House and Chunyang Palace have now cooperated with each other. In some positions, Chunyang Palace has even inserted core disciples to preside over them. Now, the big and small things that happened outside basically can't escape the control of Chunyang Palace, and it is also convenient for Chunyang Palace to adjust its external strategy at any time. However, these were all secrets, and people from other sects never knew about it. The only thing that could be said to let outsiders know about the great increase in strength was that Chunyang Palace held an apprenticeship ceremony more than a decade ago. At that ceremony, Chunyang Palace recruited hundreds of monster cultivators to join the Hall of Eccentrics at one time. There were 12 nascent soul cultivators, more than 80 golden core cultivators, and the rest were all at the foundation establishment stage. Although these forces were completely incomparable to those of the big sect, the sudden addition of 12 Yuanying masters was also the result of the doubling of the high-end strength of Chunyang Palace, which made people frequently look at them. And there was another great piece of good news, which was also kept secret by Chunyang Palace. In the Blue Vault Mountain Immortal's Cave, the Deshang stage monster race, Ho Yun, under the frequent contact of the old tree demon and Wang Yong, was also from the beginning of hostility to mutual appreciation. Finally, under the temptation of the questioning inner heart pill, he joined Chunyang Palace and became the third master of the Deshang stage in Chunyang Palace. With 3 masters of the Deshang stage, many things could be solved by the sect of Chunyang Palace. However, Chunyang Palace did not announce Ho Yun's joining to the public. Instead, Ho Yun was used as a secret weapon. Recently, Ho Yun had reached a bottleneck in his cultivation and was stuck in the middle stage of the Deshang stage. Chunyang Palace was not stingy. They directly sent a questioning inner heart pill and let Ho Yun retreat to attack the realm. At least for the next 10 years, it was estimated that Ho Yun would spend the time in retreat. After all, Ho Yun was different from the masters of these big sect outside. He had been confined to the Blue Vault Mountain Immortal's Cave and had not traveled out. No matter from the perspective of vision or knowledge, he could not compare with those masters. Even with the help of the transformation secret art and the systematic cultivation method provided by Chunyang Palace, it still took several times more time to cross the bottleneck than the masters of those big sect. When he finished his retreat, regardless of whether he succeeded or not, Chunyang Palace would arrange for him to go out to gain experience and increase his knowledge. There were more and more core disciples, and the hundreds of high-grade flying sword that Yang Chun brought back last time were also distributed, which improved the combat effectiveness of the core disciples to a higher level. Now Chunyang Palace was like those big sect. After the core disciples reached the Jidan stage and consolidated their realm, they would begin to temper their life source flying sword. Compared with the previous Yuanying stage, they could not find a suitable magic weapon as their life source flying sword. The difference was like heaven and earth. The things that happened in Chunyang Palace were all good things. The sect was thriving. No wonder the disciples he saw had a youthful face. Before Yangchen's retreat, some people had ideas about Yangchen. In this regard, the Wine Immortal House spent a lot of effort to investigate. The news came from the mouths of some high-level members of the Greatest Heaven sect, but it was heard by several alchemy sects such as the Pill Cauldron sect and the 100 Medicine sect. In addition, some rogue alchemy masters also received such news. This was purely a matter to make trouble for Yang Chun, and it was also a conspiracy to deliberately provoke greedy people and cause chaos. Maybe in the chaos, someone could really find a trace of Yang Chen's alchemy secrets. At that time, everyone was naturally likely to benefit. This method seemed clumsy, but it was very effective. Chunyang Palace had sent a stern note to several sects, but no matter what attitude the other party used to deal with it, they would not be polite when it was time to make a move. It was just that everyone was afraid of those masters who needed Yang Chen's alchemy, so they had to restrain themselves. At least on the surface, they were harmonious and said that it was a misunderstanding. In this regard, Yang Chen was not surprised. Even if Yang Chen had not reached the 5th grade realm, outsiders would have a lot of speculations. After all, the questioning inner heart pill, this pill recipe, was enough to make people tempted. Moreover, for those people, Yang Chen did not pay attention to them. Over the years, were there not many people who wanted to kill Yang Chen? The master of the palace was also worried about himself, but he completely forgot that he had brought back the body of the second city lord. It seemed that the position of the master of the palace for Yang Chen was also getting heavier and heavier, otherwise he would not be so tight. The Five Elements sect and the Qinquan sect were considered to be close to each other. They had a close friendship with the Blue Cloud sect and the Green Jade Immortal Island. They were the first big sect to know that Yang Chen was a 5th grade alchemist master, so the request for alchemy was also the earliest. The two major sects were asking for pills, asking for the questioning inner heart pill. During the 15 years of Yang Chen's retreat, the Green Jade Immortal Island had another master of the Deshang stage, who also broke through after taking the questioning inner heart pill. In just 20 years, 4 masters of the Deshang stage appeared consecutively because of the questioning inner heart pill, and the entire cultivation world had gone completely crazy. Countless people wanted to get a questioning inner heart pill, but there had always been a price without a market. No matter how high the price was, no one would sell it. The Five Elements sect and the Qinquan sect simply wanted to get the questioning inner heart pill at all costs. Both sects knew that if the Blue Cloud sect and the Green Jade Immortal Island had always occupied this advantage, then it was not a fantasy to surpass them in all aspects, but it had become a reality. For this reason, the price offered by the two sects to the Chunyang Palace had almost made the master of the palace, who was used to seeing good things in recent years, somewhat dumbfounded. Of course, the benefits of Yang Chen were indispensable. The remuneration given to Yang Chen even exceeded that of the Blue Cloud sect and the Green Jade Immortal Island. Chapter 8:11. This was very easy to understand. First, the two sects were eager to ask for pills. Second, the status of Yang Chen was also not the same as in the past. As a 5th grade alchemist master, the price tag was naturally different. The fire seeds that Yang Chen needed, the two sects were prepared and even deliberately eliminated the repetitive parts. It could be said that these big sect families were rich. In addition to the same number of fire seeds as the Blue Cloud sect and the Green Jade Immortal Island, there were other things. The materials for alchemy were naturally prepared by themselves. In addition, it seemed that everyone knew that Yang Chen liked to read miscellaneous books. Each prepared 20,000 volumes of miscellaneous books, as well as some rare medicinal materials, as a thank you gift. The most important reward was not in kind, but a promise of a favor. Both the Five Elements sect and the Qinquan sect were willing to give Yang Chen a chance to ask. As long as Yang Chen opened his mouth and did not harm the interests of the two sects could do one thing for Yang Chen unconditionally. This was a price that would make anyone speechless. Whether it was the Five Elements sect or the Qinquan sect, if they did one thing with the strength of the whole sect, it was estimated that it would change the dynasty in the mortal world. It was just a matter of a word. The power could be imagined. For the questioning inner heart pills, the two sects also did their best and were determined to win. Yang Chen certainly didn't care. Anyway, the two allies of the Blue Cloud sect and the Green Jade Immortal Island had already taken the lead. After a few decades, it was not a big deal to refine a furnace of questioning inner heart pills for the Five Elements sect and the Qinquan sect. The key was to pull the two sects around the Chunyang Palace, at least in key matters, to speak for the Chunyang Palace. It was just that the two sects had to discuss who would be the first and who would be the last. The master of the palace also asked Yang Chen's opinion. After Yang Chun thought for a moment, he suddenly smiled and said, "Simply open a furnace first. Let the two sects share it equally. 25 years later, open another furnace, and then divide it equally." This was the plan of many rogue cultivators. The two sect masters were big and powerful, so they naturally wouldn't think of this. Palace Master Zhang Jiao was still having a headache about how to coordinate the relationship between the two sides. This was indeed a good idea that would not hurt the harmony and could benefit both sides. He had opened 2 furnaces of questioning inner heart pills, and Yang Chun simply handed them over to the head of the palace. As long as the palace master took out a part of it when the time came, he would take the other part after 25 years. At least for the next 50 years, Yang Chun wouldn't have to consider refining pills for others. Of course, now Yang Chun's refining has at least 30 questioning inner heart pills, and the 2 major sects have at most 20, which is the same as the Blue Cloud sect and the Green Jade Immortal Island. Each family will be given 2 second-grade questioning inner heart pills, which is also a balanced consideration. As for the 2 sect masters paying a higher price, this is also something that can't be helped. But let the 2 sect masters not be optimistic about Chunyang Palace at the beginning and did not cooperate with Chunyang Palace. Who would have thought that the small Chunyang Palace would develop like this in 100 years, and there would be such a monstrous alchemist master? After the 2 major sect masters had the questioning inner heart pills, their strength would also skyrocket in a short period of time. At that time, the faces of the Taishaman masters would definitely look good. He just didn't know if the Taishaman hesitated and found out that even the 5 elements sect Qinquan sect had the questioning inner heart pills. Would they regret not getting rid of Yangchen earlier, or should they regret not cooperating with Chunyang Palace earlier? Yangchen's purpose was to let the sects that compete with Taishaman vigorously develop. Even if the Taishaman were eliminated, it would not be his own sect alone. Chunyang Palace was not the only sect that had been oppressed by Taishaman over the years. He thought that would be calm for a while and nothing would happen, but the appearance of Shanghai Feng brought Yang Chun bad news. The Wanbao Tower in Chinchou Pavilion, presided over by Shanghai Feng, was also thriving with the support of Yang Chun and Knife Scar. Now, several branches have been opened. Not only did the business reach Shirwan Mountains, but there were also branches of Wanbao Tower in several famous markets. Shanghai Feng came to Yang Chun, but he told Yang Chun something that he had just received. A branch of Wanbao Tower in the South China Sea was uprooted some time ago, and he only got the news today. Knowing that Yang Chun had come out of closed-door training, Shanghai Feng did not dare to act on his own and hurriedly came to tell Yang Chun. "Are our people okay?" Yang Chun frowned, but he still asked the manager and the shop assistant over there if they were injured. The manager and the shop assistant were all disciples of Chunyang Palace. Generally, they felt that there was no hope for cultivation, so they turned to business and also hoped to leave some wealth for their descendants. It's all gone. Shanghai Feng's eyes were bloodshot. He also knew that some property would not put Yang Chun in his heart, but things were very cruel. He could only tell the truth. The people and goods are gone, and those people did not intend to leave anyone alive. South China Sea? Individual Cultivators Alliance? Yang Chun chewed on these 2 words and asked after a while, "Who did it?" "It's an Individual Cultivators Alliance called Hidden Dragon Cave." Shanghai Feng gritted his teeth and replied, "I bought the news from the Wine Immortal house. The people of Hidden Dragon Cave took a fancy to a few magic weapons, but they didn't buy them after arguing with others, so they destroyed the Wanbao Tower to vent their anger." As he said, Shanghai Feng punched the wall heavily. "It took me decades to train the manager and the shop assistant." The youngest shop assistant also said that he wanted to earn spirit stones for his son to buy a good flying sword. His son's qualifications were better than him, and he was already a disciple valued by the sect. While talking, Shanghai Feng almost shed tears. It's only been 10 years, and it's gone. Getting along with those guys day and night, Shanghai Feng's relationship with them was really unusual. Hearing the bad news, he was also very sad and angry. Hidden Dragon Cave? In the voice of Yang Chun, there was a little more coldness. The name of Hidden Dragon Cave was not unfamiliar to Yang Chun. In the memory of his previous life, Hidden Dragon Cave was actually a peripheral organization of Taishaman. It was secretive and specialized in doing things for Taishaman that were inconvenient for them to do. These guys were ruthless, and there were few survivors. In the South China Sea, it was also an arrogant and domineering alliance. Although the scale was not the largest, no one was willing to provoke it. Even if the people of Hidden Dragon Cave did not bully the door, Yang Chun would not let the people of Hidden Dragon Cave live well. What's more, now the people of Hidden Dragon Cave dared to touch the disciples of Chunyang Palace, and they deserved to die. How could Yang Chun let go of the opportunity that was sent to him? It was not only revenge, but also to cut off the peripheral arms of Taishaman and weaken the power of Taishaman. It was killing two birds with one stone. I will go in person. Yang Chun was in retreat and had not gone out for a long time. He just took this opportunity to go out and gain experience. Moreover, this kind of thing to behead the claws of Taishaman, Yang Chun would never let others do it. The enemy had to do it himself, and it would be more enjoyable. Yang Chun's tone of speech and the content of his words sounded very calm. However, after doing business for hundreds of years, Shanghai Feng, who had just been promoted to Jidan Realm, had long been accustomed to observing people's words and expressions. Yang Chun seemed calm, but there was a murderous intent slowly seeping out from the inside out. Even Shanghai Feng, who was close to Yang Chun, could not help but shiver. Chapter 8:12. The overseas area where the Hidden Dragon Cave was located was a long distance from the territory of the Dao sections. With the speed of Yang Chun, it would take almost half a year to get there. In his previous life, when Yang Chun was chased by Taishaman, he hid in the Rogue Cultivator Alliance there for a long time and was very familiar with it. At that time, Yang Chun learned the inside story of the Hidden Dragon Cave and their relationship with Taishaman when he was chased by Taishaman. Now Yang Chun has not had time to find them to settle accounts. They have already extended their claws to the industry of Chunyang Palace. The new hatred added to the old hatred. How could it be tolerated? However, there was one thing that Yang Chun understood very well. The influence of the Dao sects in the Rogue Cultivator Alliance was pitifully small. Otherwise, in his previous life, Yang Chun could not hide there for hundreds of years without anyone knowing. It was impossible for Yang Chun to rely on the influence of Chunyang Palace to reason over there. Of course, Yang Chun never intended to reason with the Hidden Dragon Cave. To reason with Taishaman, who had always looked at the sky, who recognized Chunyang Palace. Moreover, the Hidden Dragon Cave never said that it had anything to do with Taishaman. It was also the people of the Hidden Dragon Cave who did it, and it had nothing to do with Taishaman. Yang Chun's initial plan was to kill people, but the power of the Hidden Dragon Cave was not small. Yang Chun alone might not be able to take care of it. Therefore, Yang Chun directly found Shi Kuei and Xie Sha. Killing people. Do you want to go? In the face of the two mutants, Yang Chun asked straightforwardly, "Go. Why don't you go?" Shi Kuei and Xie Sha were practicing. When they heard Yang Chun's words, their eyes suddenly lit up. Killing people with Yang Chun, not only was it very enjoyable every time, but it also released the wildness of Shi Kuei and Xie Sha, and there was no future trouble. How could these two guys let go of such a good thing? Do you need more help? Xie Sha agreed first, then immediately asked, "Other helpers?" Yang Chun was stunned. When he killed people, he liked to take Shi Kuei and Xie Sha with him. At most, he took the Old Tree Demon and other helpers. Yang Chun didn't think of who it was for the time being. The 8 new Yuanying stage cultivators who joined the Hall of Eccentrics are all your martial uncles. They are bored inside. If you need to, you can also take them to have fun. Xie Sha explained. The 8 Yuanying stage masters he mentioned were the monster race masters who were subdued from the Blue Vault Mountain Immortals Cave. In the Blue Vault Mountain Immortals Cave, they could only fight with each other to relieve boredom. It was indeed, as Xie Sha said, idle and flustered. Of course, Yang Chun would not dislike having more helpers. These guys were all fierce people who killed without blinking. Since he wanted to kill the people of Hidden Dragon Cave, naturally, the more helpers, the better. Okay, ask them if they want to go together. Yang Chun was also straightforward in doing things. These Yuanying stage masters had made a hard oath, and they all saw the hope of promotion in Chunyang Palace. They were absolutely loyal, and there was no doubt about it. As a result, Yang Chun, Shi Kuei, and Xie Sha appeared in front of several other Yuanying stage masters of the Hall of Eccentrics. Every time he came to the front of Master, Yang Chun seemed to ask the same sentence, killing people. Do you want to go? Perhaps they had already heard from Shi Kuei and Xie Sha that no one cared about going out with Yang Chun to kill people and set fires. Several new Yuanying stage masters did not object. They all got up and followed Yang Chun without saying a word. This movement was too big, and it directly alarmed the old tree demon Gui Shanyu, the hall master of the Hall of Eccentrics. At the beginning, it was the old tree demon who followed Yang Chun to kill and set fires. This time, when he heard that Yang Chun was going to go out again, he couldn't help but feel itchy. Do you need help? The old tree demon's actions were very direct, and his question was very direct. He took the initiative to appear in front of Yang Chun and asked this question. What I want? Of course, the more of such masters, the better. Yang Chun didn't mind Chunyang Palace coming out, but it was impossible at that time. The old tree demon was willing to take the initiative to help. Yang Chun was certainly happy. Gui Shanyu was now the hall master of the Hall of Eccentrics, and also an elder of Chunyang Palace. Of course, he couldn't leave at will, but this did not prevent his avatar from going out with Yang Chun. This had not been done once or twice before, and the two were very familiar with it. Bring a new friend with you. The old tree demon was not alone. Everyone knew that if he went out with Yang Chun to kill and set fires, he wouldn't have to worry about anyone looking for trouble. This was a good opportunity to gain experience, of course. He had to take care of a few masters. The friend of the old tree demon referred to Ho Yun, a Deshang stage master who had recently joined Chunyang Palace, but was secretive. This monster race master, who has been practicing in the Blue Vault Mountain Immortal's cave for tens of thousands of years, has not been outside for a long time, and has been cultivating. This kind of opportunity to go out was just right for him. Yang Chun was almost happy. He thought that he was just standing up for his own shop, and it was already good to be able to pull Shi Kuei and Xie Sha, who knew that there would be 2 more Deshang stage masters and 8 Yuanying stage masters. This lineup, especially the old tree demon and Ho Yun, not to mention to deal with the hidden dragon cave. Even if they faced the top masters of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance over there, they would not necessarily be at a disadvantage. Others didn't know the power of the old tree demon, but how could Yang Chun not know? He could continuously suppress the Yin Fire Tribulation for more than a dozen times. Even the masters of the Middle Deshang stage did not dare to say that they could do it, and the old tree demon had easily done it when he was in the peak Yuanying stage. Scar was such a powerful guy, but he did not have the slightest power to fight back under the hands of the old tree demon. This was not counting the fact that the old tree demon had swallowed a whole Punlai Divine Wood. He believed that the current old tree demon was definitely able to compete with the guy who had reached the peak of the middle stage. The old tree demon was already so powerful, and he could fight with the old tree demon and Wang Yong. How powerful Ho Yun, who joined Chunyang Palace, was, could be seen. With the help of so many masters, Yang Chun was confident that he could completely pull out the hidden dragon cave in one fell swoop. This chess piece, arranged by the Taishaman overseas, has been doomed to perish. It was simple to only take Shi Kuei and Xie Sha out, but it was not a trivial matter to take so many masters of the sect to the overseas Rogue Cultivator Alliance that could not be covered by the power of the Dao sections. In any case, he had to inform the head of the palace and the elders. In fact, Yang Chun had not yet asked the head of the palace, and the head of the palace already knew the movements of Yang Chun. Now Yang Chun was the treasure of Chunyang Palace. It was not known how many people were paying attention to his every move, especially the head of the palace. So when Yang Chun appeared in front of the head of the palace with several masters, the head of the palace was not surprised at all. It's good to go out and gain experience. As soon as the head of the palace opened his mouth, he put Yang Chun's private behavior under the guise of the sect. The masters of the sect also have to walk around. Chapter 8:13. Since this matter was now defined as a master of the sect going out to gain experience, it was not as simple as Yang Chun going out to provoke the hidden dragon cave alone. Yang Chen's every move has been linked to the decisions of the sect. If they dare to target Yang Chen, they would directly target Chunyang Palace. At this moment, Yang Chen once again felt the care of the sect. In this regard, Yang Chen was not pretentious and naturally accepted the kindness of the sect. Before setting off, Yang Chen saw Elder Ho Yun, who arrived with the old tree demon. From the beginning of knowing the name Ho Yun, this was the first time Yang Chen saw Ho Yun. Ho Yun, who cultivated the transformation secret art, transformed into a sturdy man with the same size as Yang Chen's current body. His whole body revealed an unusually strong aura. In addition to the sturdy figure, Ho Yun's face and hands were also densely covered with hair, just like an ordinary person with hirsutism. He did not wear any robes or armor on his body, just an ordinary cotton robe. He looked like a big farmer. If you didn't know the details of Ho Yun, even if it was Yang Chen, at first sight of Ho Yun, he would think that he was an ordinary farmer, not a master of the Deshang stage. As soon as he saw Yang Chen, he didn't wait for the old tree demon to introduce him. He walked forward and came to the opposite side of Yang Chen, looked up and down a few times, reached out and heavily patted on Yang Chen's shoulder twice, laughed and said, "Yang Chen, good, this is what a cultivator should be like." Ho Yun's words caused a burst of contempt from several surrounding Yuanying stage monster cultivators. At the Yuanying stage, everyone cultivated the transformation secret art and became a human body, but at most, it was to maintain a strong figure, which was completely different from Yang Chen's cultivation of the body refining technique. It was estimated that this was what made Ho Yun look very much to his liking. Just this one action and one sentence made everyone except the old tree demon, Shi Kuei, and Xie Sha secretly surprised in their hearts. They were all experts and had experienced Ho Yun's prowess. Don't look at the 2 times he patted Yang Chen seemed intimate and casual, but everyone understood how powerful Ho Yun was. Those 2 slaps, the ordinary monster race masters could be easily slapped to the ground. At least half of the Yuanying stage masters present were softened by Ho Yun's intimate actions. After all, Ho Yun's body was a Herculean ape king, born with divine power. Even the powerful guys like Shi Kuei and Xie Sha, in the face of Ho Yun's casual slap, they also used all their strength to resist, coupled with the strong physique of their monster clan. They could bear it. Seeing that Yang Chen stood in the same place without even changing his expression, and so casually took Ho Yun's 2 hits, and there was no sign of Yang Chen using spirit force, everyone was surprised and suddenly looked at Yang Chen in a new light. The Yuanying stage masters who did not have much contact with Yang Chen did not know much about Yang Chen. They all heard about him. But looking at Ho Yun's 2 slaps, Deng Sihai's view of Yang Chen has changed. As for Ho Yun himself, he was even more surprised. He did not expect that Yang Chen, a little junior in the middle Jidan stage, could take his 2 slaps without batting an eyelid. Although Ho Yun was afraid of hurting Yang Chen in the first slap, but seeing Yang Chen so relaxed, the second slap was the greatest strength of his body. The power of that slap was more than 100,000 jin. It was estimated that the Yuanying stage masters had to try their best to mobilize the whole body's spirit power and monster power to make themselves stand firm. Even with such a huge force, Yang Chen stood in the same place and did not move much. At this time, even Ho Yun could not help but look at this junior differently. He only knew from the mouth of the old tree demon that Yang Chen was capable, but he still had some disapproval in his heart. How powerful could a junior in the Jidan stage be? Under the 2 slaps, Ho Yun's contempt flew away without a trace. He originally thought that Yang Chen was only good at alchemy, and that his cultivation should not be worth mentioning. However, standing in the same place, he did not even mobilize his spirit power and only relied on his physical strength to withstand his 2 slaps. With this move alone, Ho Yun knew that if they really fought, maybe these Yuanying stage masters around him would not necessarily be the opponent of Yang Chen. As a master of the Deshang stage, and a master who has been cultivating for tens of thousands of years, how rich his experience was. In the blink of an eye, Ho Yun changed to a laughing face and praised him again and again. Yang Chen was such an interesting disciple. It seemed that it was not a bad thing to go out with him. Didn't you see that even a master like the old tree demon couldn't help but send out his clone? Before the trip, Yang Chun went to say goodbye to his master. Gao Yu was now refining the dragon horn flying sword, and within 100 years, he would not want to leave Chunyang Palace. This was also good, at least his safety could be absolutely guaranteed. On the other hand, Gong Sunling had already been waiting for Gao Yu. Yang Qin was going out, and she, who had been back for some days, naturally had to follow him. Killing people. Do you want to go? For Gong Sunling, Yang Chun was no exception. After saying goodbye to his master, he went to Gong Sunling and asked casually, "Go." Gong Sunling looked at Yang Chun with a smile on her face and replied. Going out with Yang Chun to do the same thing made her have a feeling of following her husband. This feeling was very sweet. On the South China Sea side, Gong Sunling had not been there yet. Taking this opportunity, she could also add the South China Sea to the Mountain River geographical map, killing 2 birds with 1 stone, adding up to 14 people, except for Yang Chun and Gong Sunling, who were in the Jidan stage. The others were either in the Yuanying stage or the Dashang stage. They were all seniors. Yang Chun naturally couldn't send everyone to the Dome Hall, so everyone went on Gong Sunling's building ship and flew towards the South China Sea. After arriving at the sea, the water-dividing wings were blessed on both sides of the ship, and the speed suddenly doubled. However, there was still a few months' journey from the Rogue Cultivator Alliance in the South China Sea. Everyone was on the ship, cultivating separately. Of course, Yang Qin was not stingy, and a lot of jade dragon wine was enough. The food carefully made by Gong Sunling made a group of monster cultivators swallow their tongues. Along the way, everyone exchanged toasts and was very happy. While on the road, Yang Shan was also thinking about how to start with the Hidden Dragon Cave so that others could not say anything. Even if it was the Taishaman, they could only eat this loss, but they could not find Yang Chun to settle accounts. All of this needed a title that would make Yang Chun kill all the people in the Hidden Dragon Cave, and no one would stand on the side of the Hidden Dragon Cave morally. Of course, the shop in the Wanbao Tower was destroyed, and all the shopkeepers in the shop were killed, which is a good reason. However, these were not enough. In his previous life, Yang Chun, who had been hiding from the Taishaman for more than 100 years, knew that if he wanted to do it thoroughly, he must at least let the people of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance stand on his side. Chapter 814. The Rogue Cultivator Alliance on the South China Sea side was located on a large archipelago in the middle of the South China Sea. It was very far from the Dao sect's territory, and there were many islands around, and there were even many places suitable for cultivators to cultivate under the sea, which was why the Dao sect could no longer exert influence. The journey was long, and it was impossible for the masters to come out of their nests regardless of the safety of their nests, and a few small minions could not guarantee complete control of this place, which became a paradise for rogue cultivators. The largest forces here were several rogue cultivator alliances, and the Hidden Dragon Cave was one of them. The Hidden Dragon Cave occupied more than a dozen relatively small islands, united hundreds of people, and became a small rogue cultivator alliance among several forces. The most powerful master of the Hidden Dragon Cave was a cave master of the peak Yuanying stage, who was extremely fierce. In this rogue cultivator's territory, he also made a big name for himself, and ordinary people did not dare to touch the tiger's whiskers easily. Yang Chun and his party rushed all the way, but did not directly find the Hidden Dragon Cave, but found the largest rogue cultivator alliance, the South China Sea Alliance. The South China Sea Alliance was simply the local emperor on the South China Sea side, even more arrogant than the Taishaman in the Dao sect. First, the strength of the South China Sea Alliance was indeed shocking. The 4 Dashang stage backers occupied the hundreds of islands with the most abundant resources and the largest area. There were tens of thousands of disciples in the alliance, which was simply a huge sect. However, the South China Sea Alliance did not declare the establishment of a sect and mainly absorbed rogue cultivators. However, although the South China Sea Alliance was overbearing, it paid attention to the rules, which was one of the reasons why Yang Shan came here, to find the South China Sea Alliance directly. Of course, another important reason was that the development of the South China Sea Alliance in the next few hundred years. Yang Chen knew almost all of them. Right now, there's just one thing that could be used by Yang Chen. Only Yang Chen appeared outside the gate of the South China Sea Alliance. Others were resting on the ship with Gong Sunling. The arrival of a group of masters did not attract anyone's attention. Only two people showed up, Yang Chen and Gong Sunling. In this South China Sea, two juniors in the Jidon stage were not enough to make people wary. Who? Give me a name. As soon as Yang Chen approached the gate of the South China Sea Alliance, someone immediately shouted. It must be said that the South China Sea sect did have the capital to be domineering. Even at the door, there were two Jidon stage masters with more than a dozen foundation stage disciples, almost no less than those big sections. I'm Yang Chen, the owner of Wanbao Tower, and I'm here to pay a visit to Alliance Master Bien. Yang Chen followed the etiquette and handed over the visiting card. However, Yang Chen did not say that he was from Chunyang Palace. Instead, he came with the identity of the owner of Wanbao Tower. Bien Shiren was the leader of the South China Sea Alliance, but it was only the leader on the surface. The real master behind the scenes was the master of the Thinking to Shang stage, but they had been concentrating on cultivation and were unwilling to manage these mundane things. Yang Chen, the owner of Wanbao Tower? Never heard of it. Seeing Yang Chen's greeting etiquette, the two Jidon stage masters in charge of the door looked at each other and saw the strangeness in each other's eyes. Then one of the Jidon stage masters waved his hand impatiently and snapped. Can you see the leader of the alliance? Why don't you step back? The eyes of several people were all raised to the sky. How could they look up to a guy they had never heard of? If it weren't for Yang Chen's courtesy, maybe he would have been thrown out. In this regard, Yang Chen was not surprised at all. It was not difficult to join the South China Sea Alliance, but it was not so easy to see the leader of the South China Sea Alliance. Bien Shiren and several other senior executives have been troubled by one thing for a long time. Unless it was a major event or a big figure related to the alliance, they would not come forward easily. I'll have to trouble you to report this matter. Although Yang Chen was scolded harshly, there was no change on his face. He still said to the gatekeepers on the opposite side, I know a little bit about the art of Qi Huang. Maybe I can help the leaders and elders solve some problems. Bien Shiren's own son suddenly suffered from a strange disease 200 years ago. His whole body was sore and weak, and he relied on Bien Shiren and several other elders to take turns to inject spiritual power every day to continue his life. This son of Bien Shiren was the apple of his eye. He was also the darling of his sworn brothers who were also elders. They had watched him grow up. Originally, his aptitude and cultivation were excellent. Unexpectedly, after one trip to the sea, he inexplicably became like this. Bien Shiren and a few of his brothers exhausted all their efforts to save his life. Many people in the alliance were not very clear about these things. Yang Chen also learned these secrets after escaping from the South China Sea Alliance 100 years later. But by that time, the South China Sea Alliance was already on the verge of collapse, and it could no longer shelter Yang Chen. Now Yang Chen said that he knew some of the art of Qi Huang, and the two gatekeepers of the Jidon stage masters suddenly muttered. There was no news of the Alliance master needing any doctor or anything like that. What did Yang Chen mean by this? They didn't want to report it, but they were afraid of breaking the master of the Alliance master. But if they reported it to the Alliance master and ignored it, they were unwilling to disturb the Alliance master for no reason. Yang Chen also saw the hesitation of the two Jidon stage masters and said with a smile, It's not necessary to report to the Alliance master. Any elder on duty can do it. It's just hard for you to make a trip. I will be grateful. As he spoke, Yang Chen took out a middle-grade spirit stone, which seemed to be 1 or 2 Jin, and handed it over easily. Letting others run errands naturally can't be in vain. With this middle-grade spirit stone, and Yang Chen just reported to the elder on duty instead of the Alliance master. The two Jidon stage masters were no longer under pressure. The two looked at each other, and one of them nodded quickly. You wait here. Then they turned and left. After a cup of tea, the Jidon stage master who went to report rushed back. He glanced at Yang Chen strangely, then bowed slightly and made a gesture of invitation. and said loudly, "Distinguished guest, please come with me." In just a short time, the title became a distinguished guest, which must have surprised the Jidon stage master. Yang Chun has never heard of this person. How did he know that the Alliance needed a doctor? Yang Chun did not have the slightest pressure and followed the Jidon stage master into the South China Sea Alliance. Even the elder on duty was also Bian Shiren's sworn brother. How could he not know the current predicament of the South China Sea Alliance? "Are you a doctor?" In the guest hall, Yang Chun met the elder on duty. What made Yang Chun strange was that this elder turned out to be a woman. For a moment, Yang Chun thought of the identity of the elder, the wife of Bian Shiren, Shu Lanqiu. Chapter 8:15. Speaking of it, Shu Lanqiu was the person he cared about the most, because she was the mother of the sick Bian Yong. Even Bian Shiren was not as concerned about Bian Yong's condition as Shu Lanqiu. As soon as she heard Yang Chun say that he was a doctor, and he sounded very confident, she immediately brought him in. "Greetings, Elder Shu." Yang Chun did not directly answer Shu Lanqiu's question, but bowed first, then straightened up and said in a clear voice, "This junior Yang Chun, as the owner of Wanbao Tower, has a little dabbled in alchemy." "Wanbao Tower?" Shu Lanqiu looked at Yang Chun and suddenly sneered. "Wanbao Tower has been bullying the market in my South China Sea and has been erased by the Hidden Dragon Cave. What are you doing here?" "Naturally, it is to seek justice for my Wanbao Tower's shopkeeper and staff." Yang Chun faced Shu Lanqiu's sneer without any fear and directly stated his purpose. "No matter which sect you are from, I advise you that the South China Sea is not a place where you can intervene. Where you come from, you should go back honestly," Shu Lanqiu said lightly. Originally, she disdained to see a junior in the Jidon stage, but since it involved Bian Yong, it was natural to care more. Just looking at Shu Lanqiu's efforts for a while, she knew the name of Wanbao Tower and knew how well the South China Sea Alliance controlled this side. Even the excuse that the 10,000 treasure tower was destroyed by the Hidden Dragon Cave was known, it can be seen. Whether or not my Wanbao Tower is bullying the market, the elder knows in his heart. Yang Chun didn't talk back, just said one sentence. If the elders of the South China Sea Alliance can't see what's wrong with this kind of pretense of seizing, it would be too low. A strong dragon can't suppress a local snake. I can't blame others. Shu Lanqiu smiled slightly and said nothing more. Things that everyone had a tacit understanding about would be meaningless if they were exposed. These are chores. Shu Lanqiu was concerned about whether Yang Chun could really cure Bian Yong, so she immediately changed the topic. "Mister said that you are proficient in the art of Qi Huang. Is that true?" "I don't dare. I just know a thing or two." Yang Chun expressed modestly again. He knew that Shu Lanqiu would definitely take the initiative to mention this matter. "I have never heard of patients in the South China Sea Alliance, but where did you know?" Shu Lanqiu listened to Yang Chen's words, but her face slowly changed, and there was a sharpness in her speech, and there was also a bit more suspicion. Bian Yong's serious illness was due to his injuries. After his injuries were healed, he was left with a permanent illness. No matter what kind of elixirs he used, it was of no use. Only a few high-level members of the South China Sea Alliance knew about this, and it had been kept secret. Yang Chun was able to know it, which was naturally very suspicious. This younger generation junior has a slight understanding of the art of Qi Huang. A few years ago, I had a chance to see the Alliance master Bian from a distance. Yang Chen's words, with a sense of fear, said, "At that time, the face of the Alliance master Bian did not seem to be very good." "So what?" Shu Lanqiu's face became more and more gloomy. What was the relationship between seeing her husband a few years ago and finding out that there was a patient? Could it be that a bad complexion was sick? At that time, it seemed that the Alliance master Bian was a little ill. Yang Chun didn't care how gloomy Shu Lanqiu's face was, and said to himself, "I was not sure, but after seeing the elder, I was more sure." A few years ago, he saw the face of the Alliance master Bian and suspected that he was sick. Now, he saw the wife of the Alliance master Bian. He was more and more sure that the Alliance master Bian was sick. He said it in front of Shu Lanqiu, the wife of the Alliance master Bian. How could it not make Shu Lanqiu furious? May I ask if Mr. is here to provoke my South China Sea alliance? Shu Lanqiu was furious and immediately stood up. This junior's eyes will not be wrong. Yang Chun sat on the side, unmoved. Although Shu Lanqiu looked angry, she still called him Mr., which has explained a lot of problems. This little trick has not been put in Yang Chen's eyes. Does Mr. really think that my husband and I are both slightly ill? Shu Lanqiu saw Yang Chen's confident appearance, and she also believed a little. Could it be that Bian Yang's illness infected her and her husband? So it was seen by Yang Chen. The alliance, Master Bian and the elder, are still a small matter for you now. I'm afraid that the people who are really ill are not a day or two. Yang Chen shook his head slowly and said these words. As soon as these words came out, Shu Lanqiu's heart was filled with a little more hope. Bian Yang has been ill for hundreds of years. Shu Lanqiu and her husband have tried their best to no avail. They can only rely on a few sworn brothers to help with spiritual power every day to maintain their vitality. Yang Chen only looked at himself and Bian Shiren and judged that there was a patient. This eyesight was really amazing. Maybe he could really cure Bian Yang's illness. To tell you the truth, there is indeed a patient. Of course, Shu Lanqiu would not easily let go of the life-saving straw. Since Yang Chen saw it, she immediately went down the slope and admitted that there was a patient. It must be a close person to the alliance, Master Bian and the elder. Yang Chen did not have the joy of guessing right, and said faintly, "The person who is seriously ill is my son." At this moment, Shu Lanqiu no longer needed to hide it, and quickly admitted it, but immediately followed by asking, "Mister, my son has been weak in limbs, poor in appetite, lethargy and listlessness, but what is the disease?" I haven't seen the patient. This younger generation junior doesn't dare to make irresponsible remarks. Yang Chen did not answer, but replied faintly. Shu Lanqiu also scolded herself for being too concerned. If it was an ordinary disease, it could be diagnosed and treated by others. How could it be delayed for hundreds of years without being cured? But she asked a little too anxiously. Blame this old body for being rude. Shu Lanqiu stood up and very respectfully made a gesture to Yang Chen. I also asked Mr. to move and treat my child. Soon, the two arrived at the room where Bian Yang was recuperating. In the room, in addition to Bian Yang, there was also a big man. His eyes were like electricity, staring at Yang Chen for a while. If Shu Lanqiu hadn't come in with Yang Chen, maybe this big man would have started immediately. Please make a diagnosis. Shu Lanqiu once again invited Yang Chen. Yang Chen sat in front of the bed, then looked at the patient's eyes, checked the tongue coating, felt the pulse on both wrists, and even palpated the patient, then frowned and got up. How is it? Shu Lanqiu asked nervously. As a mother, she was more anxious than anyone about Bian Yang's situation. This is not an illness. Yang Chen said with certainty, this is a rare poison. Chapter 8:16. Poison. Not only Shu Lanqiu, but even the big man who had been listening suddenly exclaimed. There was no way. This news was so shocking that they simply couldn't accept it. For hundreds of years, people didn't know how many famous doctors they had secretly found, whether in the secular world or in the cultivation world. They all thought that it was a rare disease that could not be cured. However, as soon as Yang Chen met, he said that he was poisoned by a rare poison. How could this be tolerated? Is my son really poisoned? The big man asked again in a low voice, and at the same time, he waved his big hand, and several restrictions wrapped the entire room where the sick bed was located so that no one would hear it. It's poisoning. Yang Chen nodded heavily, sighed, and said with certainty, I'm sure that this is poisoning, Alliance Master Bian. The other party called the patient as his son. Naturally, it was Bian Shiren himself. Not to mention that Yang Chen had also claimed to have seen Bian Shiren before, and he couldn't call out the Alliance Master Bian. What poison? As soon as Bian Shiren heard that Yang Chen was confirmed to be poisoned, he suddenly changed into a different person, full of murderous intent. Is there a way to cure it? Shu Lanqiu next to him had already cried with joy. For the first time in so many years, someone had given a diagnosis with great certainty. Whether it was a disease or poisoning, there was always a direction to work towards. Young Master Bian's poison is not a big problem. At most, it will make people weak, drowsy, and absent-minded. It will not be fatal for a while. Yang Chun said slowly, while organizing his own words. On the contrary, the two of you may have some trouble. What do you mean? Bien Shiren's face suddenly changed again. His son became like this, and Yang Chun said that it was okay. Instead, he said that he and his wife, the two masters of the Yuanying stage, were in trouble. What was his intention? Yang Chun did not answer immediately, but sniffed around for a long time, and his frown never loosened. This action made Bien Shiren and his wife inexplicable. They didn't know what happened, but no one dared to disturb Yang Chun. After a long time, Yang Chun looked puzzled and frowned. It shouldn't be. What shouldn't be? Shu Lanqiu asked in confusion. She was now concerned about her son and her husband, and it also involved herself. In any case, she had to ask clearly. Your son's poison is unique and easy to deal with. Yang Chun explained patiently. It's just that I haven't figured out how the two seniors were poisoned. We are also poisoned. Bien Shiren and Shu Lanqiu were surprised for a while. How is it possible? Up until now, they had not felt anything unusual. How could they say that they were poisoned? Junior knows that Senior doesn't believe me. Yang Chun got straight to the point and didn't beat around the bush. He quickly stated his request. Senior, please find me a live fiery arowana. We will know at a glance. They were in the middle of the sea, so a live fire arowana was not a rare thing. Although in the secular world, this was already a great, nourishing, holy product, but in the South China Sea Alliance, it was just an ordinary thing. Soon, a large wooden basin with seawater and fish was sent to Yang Chun. After still arranging the restriction, Yang Chun got up and grabbed the fiery arowana. He took out a jade bowl and cut the body of the fiery arowana with a knife. After a while, a small bowl of fiery arawana's blood was accumulated. Senior, please start and take a little of your son's blood. Yang Chun was not polite and directly told Shu Lanqiu. Seeing that Yang Chun was so mysterious, Shu Lanqiu and Bien Shiren were also a little anxious. Shu Lanqiu glanced at her husband, and Bien Shiren nodded very slightly. Shu Lanqiu then walked to the sickbed and gently cut Bien Yang's wrist, squeezed out a little blood into a jade cup, and then quickly repaired the small wound with spiritual power. When Shu Lanqiu finished all this, Yang Chun divided the fiery arawana's blood into 4 parts and distributed them in 4 small fish jade bowls. Then he picked up the jade cup and slowly poured the drops of Bien Yang's blood into one of the fiery arawana's blood. Hey, a creepy sound suddenly came out. As soon as the 2 kinds of blood came into contact, white smoke came out and the sizzling sound came out. It took a while before it stopped. When it calmed down, the red blood in the jade bowl had also turned into a strange color liquid, which was actually dark purple. Yang Chun broke the gill off the head of the fiery arowana and threw it into the small jade bowl. After a while, there was another sizzling sound, and the gill began to slowly dissolve in the purple liquid. Almost without Yang Chun saying anything more, Bien Shiren and Shu Lanqiu both took a breath. This blood turned into something that could corrode bones, and the toxicity could be imagined. Immediately afterward, Yang Chun cut a hole in his hand and dripped it into the second jade bowl. The 2 kinds of blood mixed for a long time, without any movement, still so red, without any change. Immediately, Yang Chun pushed the remaining 2 jade bowls in front of Bien Shiren and Shu Lanqiu and made a pleased gesture. Obviously, this was Yang Chun's way of letting them try with blood. The 2 did not hesitate. They cut their blood vessels and squeezed out a few drops of blood and dripped it into the fiery arawana's blood. There was a sound and white smoke, but it was not intense. Compared with Bien Yang's blood, the reaction of the 2 blood was very slight. However, after a while, the red fiery arawana's blood in the jade bowl turned pale purple. At this time, Bien Shiren and Shu Lanqiu's faces suddenly became ugly. They had been poisoned unknowingly, which was really incredible. However, everything in front of them made them unable to believe it. Yang Chun's blood had no reaction, but all 3 of Bien Shiren's family had a reaction. Needless to say, there must be something wrong with this. If the 2 seniors don't believe it, take a closer look at the blood of the 2 seniors there's already some faint purple in it. Yang Chen sighed and said slowly. Bien Shiren and his wife were even more shocked, and they desperately made a few more drops of blood and dripped it into the white jade bowl and looked at it carefully. At first glance, the faces of the two people changed again. In their red blood, there was a little bit of light purple. This light purple was very rare. If it weren't for the fact that both of them were cultivators, their eyesight was greatly increased, and they were reminded by Yang Chun, and the contrast in the white jade bowl was clear. They really wouldn't have been able to find it for a while. This has fully explained one point, that is, Bien Shiren and Shu Lanxiu have been poisoned unknowingly, and the two of them were unaware of it. Chapter 817. Originally, the poison in young Master Bien's body was not a fatal poison, but once it comes into contact with something in the blood of the fire dragon fish, it will turn into a highly toxic poison. Yang Chun explained slowly. In fact, there was no need for Yang Chun to explain too much detail. Both Bien Shiren and Shu Lanxiu understood what was going on. The demonstration just now had explained everything. The two seniors have been taking good care of young Master Bien. The poisonous gas in young Master Bien's body has accumulated for a long time and has also entered your body. Yang Chun continued his judgment. It's just that this younger generation junior has never smelled the blood of the fire dragon fish around you. So, I don't understand how the two seniors were poisoned. Seeing Yang Chen's confusion, Bien Shiren and Shu Lanxiu suddenly looked at each other and said in unison, "Tonic soup." "Tonic soup? What is this?" Yang Chen suddenly came up, as if he had found the answer, and asked eagerly. This tonic soup, as the name implies, is used to nourish the spiritual awareness. Shu Lanxiu explained to Yang Chen with a heavy face. Every day after we pass the spiritual power to Yong, we are always tired and have to drink some of this tonic soup. To make this tonic soup, we need to use the fire dragon fish. In just an instant, all three of them understood everything. When Bien Yong was poisoned, the Alliance Master Bien and other elders would drink the tonic soup made by the fire dragon fish after working hard to replenish Bien Yong's vitality every day. They just had face-to-face contact with Bien Yong, and the poisonous gas invasion was almost negligible. In addition, after boiling into the soup, some of the components in the fire dragon fish blood were also negligible. Perhaps 1 or 2 meals didn't matter, but after hundreds of years of accumulation, both of them were unknowingly poisoned. The most ruthless part was that the poison had almost no effect in the early stage. This could be seen from the fact that Bien Shiren and Shu Lanxiu have not noticed any abnormalities. As time went by, who knew what would happen? Not good. Yang Chun suddenly thought of something again and hurriedly reminded, did the other elders of the South China Sea Alliance also pass the spiritual power to young Master Bien and drink this tonic soup? Not good. When Bien Shiren was reminded by Yang Chun, he was also shocked. In the past 100 years, every elder had helped Bien Yong with their spiritual power. Even the elders of the Deshang stage were no exception. Almost everyone had drunk the spirit-replenishing soup. The thief who did this to Bien Yong must have already calculated this and made such an arrangement. Although it was not known who arranged such a poisonous plan, it was very obvious for the South China Sea Alliance. This has almost wiped out the top executives of the South China Sea Alliance. As long as the time is up, even without the enemy, the top executives of the South China Sea Alliance will die of poison. Without these masters, the South China Sea Alliance will only be scattered. The more Bien Shiren thought about it, the more terrified and furious he became. What kind of enemy would make such a long time and even take hundreds of years to trap the South China Sea Alliance? Not everyone drank the replenishing spirit soup. Shu Lanxiu's face suddenly became ferocious, gnashing her teeth, and said, "There is a person who has never drunk it." Bien Shiren was stunned, and then his face became complicated. Yang Chun was on the side, but he didn't say anything. He just listened quietly, as if it had nothing to do with him. In my South China Sea Alliance, Elder Luo has never liked seafood. He never eats fish and shrimp. Naturally, he will not drink the replenishing spirit soup made by the fire arowana. Bien Shiren seemed to be talking to the air and said these words. But everyone knew that these words were said to Yang Chun. Maybe it's just a coincidence. Yang Chen knew that he had to speak, and he defended the elder Luo who he had never seen before. It's not a big sin not to eat seafood. It's not that Yang Chen's character is good. He has to speak well for others. It's really hundreds of years of friendship with others. Yang Chen is just meeting for the first time. If he speaks badly, who knows what others will think in their hearts? Simply be a good person and think well of people. Even if Bian Shiren doesn't want to think so, it has nothing to do with Yang Chen. Elder Luo is bent on building a relationship with the Central Plains Dao sects. Bian Shiren smiled and did not hide the stranger Yang Chen whom he met for the first time. He just said to himself, "It's really a coincidence." Hearing Bian Shiren say this, Yang Chen's heart sank for a while. How similar is this hundreds of years of arrangement to the conspiracy of the Taishaman in the Chunyang Palace? The Hidden Dragon Cave is the pawn of the Taishaman. Is there a shadow of the Hidden Dragon Cave in this? Sir, I don't know if this poison can be cured. Shu Lanqiu has always been concerned about whether her son can be saved, and now she is more concerned about whether her husband and herself can be saved. So when Bian Shiren finished venting, she immediately asked Yang Chen, "If the poison is deep, then even the great principal Golden Immortal can't do anything about it." Yang Chen's words directly sent Shu Lanqiu into the abyss, but immediately pulled her from the abyss to the sky. But now the poison is not deep, it's not difficult. As long as you find a few medicinal materials, you can detoxify it. As for young Master Bian, it's even simpler. The same medicinal materials, remove 2 flavors and refine it. What medicinal materials, as long as Sir can say it, even if it is a mountain of knives and a sea of fire, the South China Sea Alliance will definitely be able to find it for Sir. Shu Lanqiu was really excited. Yang Chen could not only save her husband and herself, but also her son. Was there anything happier than this? It's not necessary to go up the mountain of knives and under the sea of fire. Medicinal materials are not too rare. It's easy to find them in the Central Plains. Yang Chen smiled and waved his hand. "I have a branch in the Wanbao Tower." Unfortunately, the branch was robbed by the Hidden Dragon Cave. Listening to Yang Chen talking about the Wanbao Tower, Shu Lanqiu remembered what Yang Chen came for. Yang Chen has helped them so much, and the South China Sea Alliance will also come forward and put pressure on the Hidden Dragon Cave. Just as she was about to tell Yang Chen about this, Shu Lanqiu's face suddenly changed a little. She turned to her husband Bian Shiren and said faintly, "Elder Luo is also on good terms with the people of the Hidden Dragon Cave. The Hidden Dragon Cave is also willing to be involved with the Central Plains. Wanbao Tower has medicinal materials for treatment, but the Hidden Dragon Cave destroyed the branch of Wanbao Tower. It's really a coincidence. Sir, if you don't refine it and take those medicinal materials alone, will it have any effect?" Shu Lanqiu seemed to think of something and asked Yang Chen again. Of course, it's impossible to completely detoxify it, but it can offset a lot of toxicity. Yang Chen opened his mouth decisively, and the reason was not used. Good, good. Bian Shiren also figured out a lot of things, and couldn't help but say 2 good words. Elder Luo, Hidden Dragon Cave. Chapter 8:18. Rare things are precious. The specialty of a monster race can make a lot of money if it is taken to the Central Plains Dao sect. In the same way, the specialty of the Central Plains can also make a lot of money if it is taken to the island in the South China Sea. Wanbao Tower's branch in the South China Sea is playing this idea. Shanghai Feng's business is not just a simple transaction, but has reached the realm of maximizing profits. Based on this reason, the price of some things in Wanbao Tower's branch in the South China Sea can definitely make people jealous and surprised. The Hidden Dragon Cave's attack on the Wanbao Tower's branch may not be just for the sake of money. However, now, with Shu Lanqiu's analysis, the purpose of the Hidden Dragon Cave to deal with Wanbao Tower has changed dramatically. At least in the hearts of the South China Sea Alliance's couple, there was definitely a conspiracy. Mr. Yang, you can rest assured that the justice of Wanbao Tower, I will definitely help Mr. Yang get it back. After listening to Shu Lanqiu's purpose of Yang Chen's visit to the South China Sea Alliance, Bian Shiren immediately patted his chest and promised. No kidding, the lives of his son and his wife, and the lives of the senior members of the South China Sea Alliance are in the hands of Yang Chun. Not to mention the sacrifice of a hidden dragon cave that is hostile to the South China Sea Alliance. Even if they are asked to fight with other rogue cultivator alliances in the South China Sea at the same time, they will not hesitate to make challenge. I don't dare to bother the leader of the alliance. Since it is the grievance between Wanbao Tower and the Hidden Dragon Cave, it is natural that I will solve it between Wanbao Tower and the Hidden Dragon Cave. Yang Chun didn't want the South China Sea Alliance to intervene for the time being. Once the South China Sea Alliance intervened, not to mention whether it would kill the Hidden Dragon Cave, even if it delayed for some time, it was estimated that Yang Chun didn't want to see it. Especially the group that came with Yang Chun. They came with the purpose of killing and arson with Yang Chun. If they really stood up, others wouldn't say it. It was estimated that Shi Kuei and Xie Sha would be seriously dissatisfied. Not to mention Ho Yun, who seemed to have been holding back for a long time. This is the site of my South China Sea Alliance. There is no reason for Mr. to do it by himself. Bian Shiren and Shu Lanxiu and his wife were trying to dissuade. They must take things to themselves. It's not that they have to take the initiative. Yang Chun is now concerned about the safety of the top management of the South China Sea Alliance. He is a small Jidan stage master. He is going to argue with the Hidden Dragon Cave with several Yuanying stage masters. Not to mention the outcome. Once Yang Chun is hurt, wouldn't it make the hope of the South China Sea Alliance disappear? In any case, they can't let Yang Chun do it. I dare not bother the South China Sea Alliance, as long as the Alliance Master can preside over justice when we solve our grievances. Yang Chun made up his mind. Anyway, as long as the South China Sea Alliance took the lead and proved to himself that the 10,000 treasure tower occupied the truth, everything else would naturally be solved by a group of killing stars. Of Chun Chun. Chun and Bien Xian couple for Bien couple for it. C. Yang of the sea. The South China Sea Alliance will absolutely cooperate with Wanbao Tower, and how the South China Sea Alliance needs to cooperate, the South China Sea Alliance will cooperate. Yang Chun did not make empty promises. He directly used the medicinal ingredients he had on hand to refine a pill, which could temporarily suppress the poison in Bien Yang's body, allowing him to maintain a normal life for a month. Bian Shiren and his wife also did not doubt it and gave Bien Yang the pill. In less than half a day, Bien Yang, who was originally lying on the sickbed with a sore body and was unable to move, immediately recovered his vigor. Bien Yang's cultivation base was in the Jidan stage. In the past 100 years, there were Yuanying stage and Deshang stage masters who gave him spiritual power every day. After a long time, his cultivation base did not fall but rose, and he had already faintly reached the edge of a breakthrough. As long as the poison in his body was completely removed, it was estimated that he would reach the stage of nascent soul formation. Bian Shiren and his wife were pleasantly surprised. For 100 years, they only maintained their son's survival. Now, they suddenly saw their son standing in front of them as if nothing had happened, calling his father and mother. At this moment, both of them seemed to be in a dream. In particular, Bien Yang's cultivation base had reached the peak Jidan stage and was about to face a breakthrough. This definitely made the Bian Shiren couple feel like they had won the big lottery of 100 million yuan prize pool, and they were so happy that they didn't know how to celebrate. Bien Yang has been paralyzed for more than 100 years and lived a life worse than death. Today, with a pill from Yang Chun, he was immediately no different from a normal person. Bien Yang heard what Yang Chun said clearly on the sickbed. Bien Yang always thought that he was sick. Now he knew that he was poisoned, and the thief actually wanted to use his body to plot against the entire senior management of the South China Sea Alliance. For a while, Bien Yang's anger was simply unparalleled. When he heard that Yang Chun was going to deal with the Hidden Dragon Cave, he even planned to join with Yang Chun. Finally, they were dissuaded by the Bian Shiren couple, but they also promised a sentence. If Yang Chun needed it, Bien Yang would not hesitate to go through fire and water. Yang Chun could have removed the hidden dangers of the senior management of the South China Sea Alliance in one fell swoop. But Yang Chun still kept a hand, just woke up Bien Yang first, and shirked the lack of complete medicinal materials. This also forced the South China Sea Alliance to do its best to help Yangchun, instead of turning their backs after the possible hidden dangers were resolved. Next, the South China Sea Alliance must communicate at the top level, at least what Bian Shiren and Xu Lanqiu had just analyzed. They must let their sworn brothers know. Of course, the suspected elder Luo would definitely have a very tragic end. There was no way who made everything happen so coincidentally. With the lessons of Chunyang Palace, Yangchun was almost certain that elder Luo was a spy of Taishimen. As long as there was a problem with the senior management of the South China Sea Alliance, elder Luo would definitely be in power. Then, with the great achievements of annexing the Hidden Dragon Cave, he would soon be able to stabilize the entire South China Sea Alliance. At that time, the rogue cultivators in the South China Sea would also be under the power of Taishimen. Everything was a good plan, but it was a pity that they ran into Yangchun. These people should not have started against the disciples of Chunyang Palace and destroyed the branch of Wanbao Tower, but it attracted Yangchun and a group of evil stars. Now, a group of evil stars headed by Yangchun was on the sea not far from the Hidden Dragon Cave. Gong Suanling's ship floated quietly on the sea, and everyone was in the cabin, drinking in silence. Everyone in the Chunyang Palace was ready, and now they were waiting for the people of the South China Sea Alliance to be placed around, so that Yangchun and others would not be able to escape. With the help of the South China Sea Alliance, this time everyone in the Hidden Dragon Cave could be said to be unable to escape. Seniors, this time, we are not here to reason with the Hidden Dragon Cave. Yangchun looked at the time and said to the masters who were already eager to try, "The blood of the disciples of the sect can't be shed in vain. Blood for blood. Wanbao Tower branch will not be left alive, and the Hidden Dragon Cave will not be left alive." Chapter 819. When the Hidden Dragon Cave attacked the Wanbao Tower branch, it was also unreasonable. After the killing was completed, it was announced that Wanbao Tower was bullying the market, and the Hidden Dragon Cave presided over justice. Anyway, it was already a fait accompli. Outside the South China Sea, who would stand up for a rootless Wanbao Tower? Even if Wanbao Tower was just a branch here, and there might be some affiliates outside, but so what? This was the South China Sea, and the Hidden Dragon Cave was the local snake. This Wanbao Tower was not a big sex shop. Who would offend the local snake of the South China Sea for Wanbao Tower? With a high reward, this was possible. However, since it was a business, it was necessary to calculate costs and benefits. To deal with the Hidden Dragon Cave, or a foreign dragon, what kind of price would be paid to hire these masters? A measly little myriad treasure tower was not so wealthy and overbearing yet. It was precisely because of these that the Hidden Dragon Cave would be at ease to start, and even the background of Wanbao Tower was not inquired about. A small business where even the shopkeeper was only in the foundation stage. If it was destroyed, it would be destroyed without any psychological burden. However, the people of the Hidden Dragon Cave did not expect that behind this small roll in their eyes, there was such a terrifying force. Therefore, when a group of evil stars from Chunyang Palace appeared around several islands of the Hidden Dragon Cave, many people didn't even know what happened. The terrifying attack began in an instant, and without any warning, the 10 Yuanying stage masters used their magic weapons to enter the Hidden Dragon Cave. Wherever they went, the disciples of the Hidden Dragon Cave on the periphery were killed and wounded. Yangchun had already said that there was no need to keep them alive, and the 10 Monster Clan Yuanying stage masters who came out with Yangchun were originally following Yangchun to kill people. They would not consider the matter of mercy, and they would be happy to do it. On the periphery of the Hidden Dragon Cave, there was a sudden scream. This was the Rogue Cultivator Alliance, not a formal sect, and the structure was relatively loose. In terms of inheritance, it was even more heterogeneous and impure. There was no systematic inheritance at all. Practically everyone cultivated in a different way. In addition to the high-level members of the Hidden Dragon Cave who had the support of the Greatest Heaven sect and those advanced cultivation methods, most of the others were cultivation methods that were exchanged from all over the place. A low-level rogue cultivator against a ferocious monster race Yuanying stage master. The result could be imagined. The demon race did not care whether it looked good or not when they killed people. In addition, this time, Yang Chen intended to establish his might, so everyone was even more unscrupulous when they attacked. As soon as they started, they used the most brutal moves. Cultivators might only use a flying sword to pierce through the heart, but these guys tore people into pieces the moment they started. In less than the time it took to burn a stick of incense, on the islands of the Hidden Dragon Cave, there were countless broken limbs, internal organs flying on the ground, and blood flowing. Those who were timid would definitely think that they had arrived at the Bloodsea slaughterhouse and not a place of cultivation. As for the old tree demon clone and Ho Yun, they still disdained to fight against some guys in the Qi refining foundation and dance stage. These were just cannon fodder for Shi Kuei and Xie Sha to vent their anger. Who dares to behave atrociously in my Hidden Dragon Cave? Yang Chun and Gong Sunling's ship had just arrived at the edge of the main island of the Hidden Dragon Cave, and they heard someone shouting loudly. But immediately after, a series of miserable shrieks could be heard, and no one dared to shout out loud anymore. Yang Chun, is it too much to leave no one alive? Gong Sunling listened to the mournful voice and looked at the flesh and blood scattered on the ground not far away, and suddenly asked. Gong Sunling, after all, was still a woman who had not been tempered in the killing field. She could not compare with Shi Shanshan, who had killed people. Seeing the cruel scene, she would always be a little soft-hearted. When they killed my Wanbao Tower's shopkeeper, I didn't think it was too much. Yang Chun turned his head. If Gong Sunling thought like this every time, Yang Chun was very worried about whether she could survive the catastrophe in the future. I mean, those high-level masters, if they stay my Mountain River geographical map, may have a few more free slaves. Gong Sunling explained with a smile. Now Gong Sunling has called those who have been included in her Mountain River geographical map slaves. In fact, those people are doing the work of slaves, but they don't know it yet. Gong Sunling's words also meant that Yang Chen's worries were not necessary at all. The Gong Sunling of this life was no longer the Gong Sunling of the previous life, and she was getting further and further away from the fate of failing to cross the tribulation and turning into flying ash. Don't worry, there will be opportunities in the future. After confirming that Gong Sunling was not the kind of character that Yang Chun was worried about, Yang Chun smiled and comforted her. Looking at the tragic situation of the disciples of the Hidden Dragon Cave on the island, his heart seemed to have returned to his previous life. 10 Yuanying stage masters besieged the Hidden Dragon Cave. How similar was it to the 8 Yuanying stage masters besieging the Chunyang Palace in his previous life? In his previous life, his master sent Yang Chun away in the siege to avoid humiliation. The memory of his previous life was like a torture that tortured Yang Chen's heart, and now he finally released some. Yang Chun never had the concept of not doing to others what he did not want to do to himself. These were the blood debts owed by the Taishaman in his previous life. In this life, he could only pay with more blood, and there was no other possibility. The shrill screams came one after another. Yang Chun and Gong Sunling had put away the ship and boarded the island. The clone of the old tree demon and Ho Yin also followed, with Yang Chun and Gong Sunling slowly walking along the road on the island into the center of the Hidden Dragon Cave. The 4 people were hardly blocked at all, and there were body fragments all the way. The main attackers of this island were Shi Kuei and Xie Sha. The 2 ferocious guys did not know how many people's lives were taken when they were in the barren valley. Here, with the instructions of Yang Chun, they showed their fierce wild nature unscrupulously. Finally, the screams were no longer heard, but the sound of the attack was louder, and the rumbling spread far away. There was no need to ask to know that this was a strong enemy. This was the main island of the Hidden Dragon Cave, and it was inevitable that there would be masters. Countless warnings were sent out. At this moment, the Hidden Dragon Cave was like a beast that had been deeply stabbed, and it finally reacted and began to organize a counterattack. In the distant sky, there were dozens of streamers flashing, and it was a figure flying on a sword, flying in the direction of the main island of the Hidden Dragon Cave. Obviously, this was the master who went out or had a good relationship with the Hidden Dragon Cave around to help. In Ho Yun's hand, there was a shining golden stick. His figure swayed, and he was in the air. He raised the thick and somewhat scary stick high and slammed it down in the face of more than a dozen streamers flying towards him. Boom! After the thunderous sound, on the ground in front of Yang Chun and Gong Sunling, there were more than a dozen human-shaped pits, and there were a few faint groans of pain. Chapter 820. Ho Yun's stick shot out, and there were still people alive? Yang Chun was very stunned, but immediately understood that this was Ho Yun who heard Gong Sunling's words just now and deliberately left them alive. Which pit was alive, and which pit was dead? It was very easy for Yang Chun and Gong Sunling to distinguish. Yang Chun just gently stamped his feet twice, and 3 guys who were moaning from more than a dozen human-shaped pits popped out. Under Ho Yun's stick, although the 3 guys had not yet died, their tendons and bones had been broken, and they had no strength to struggle. If it weren't for his strong cultivation base, he would have fainted at this moment. The 3 guys who were alive were all masters of the Yuanying stage. In Yang Chen's memory, there was no impression of these people. However, this was not a problem for Yang Chen. Since they came to help the Hidden Dragon Cave, or returned to help, it was always related to the Hidden Dragon Cave. Now Yang Chen's attitude towards the Hidden Dragon Cave was that he would kill wrongly, and he would not let them go. He took out 3 medicinal pills and stuffed them into the mouths of the 3 guys to ensure that they would not die because of their injuries. Gong Sunling, next to him, was already prepared and had skillfully received the 3 people into the mountain river geographical map. The little girl's face was full of a happy smile, and she thanked Ho Yun in the air. "Thank you, Grandmaster." According to seniority, Ho Yun and the old tree demon were of the same generation, and Gong Sunling also called Ho Yun as Grandmaster. In response to Gong Sunling, it was the whistling sound of the weapon in Ho Yun's hand that was like a giant pillar. In just 1 or 2 moves, the dozens of figures that had just flown back had all disappeared into thin air. Except for the 3 Yuanying stage slaves left for Gong Sunling, the rest of the guys, when they touched Ho Yun's stick, were directly smashed into meat paste and then flew away without a trace. In the sky, except for Ho Yun's extremely fierce figure, no one could be seen. After circling a few times and not seeing anyone, Ho Yun called out to the 3 people on the ground and rushed into the inner island impatiently. He has been stifled in the Blue Vault Mountain Immortal's cave for tens of thousands of years. The dozens of small lives just now are not enough for him to fill the teeth. Those guys in the inner island are his appetizers. On the way to the inner island, Gong Sunling was overjoyed. In just a short time, there were 3 more Yuanying stage slaves in the Mountain River geographical map. It would be easier to refine in the future. How could she not be happy? The doppelganger of the old tree demon didn't seem to be in a hurry. It just slowly followed Yang Chun and Gong Sunling. Perhaps the nature of trees was not killing. After swallowing the Pengli wood, the old tree demon's cultivation had gone up to a higher level, and had become more stable. Compared to Yang Chun and the other 2, who were strolling leisurely, the surrounding environment was completely out of place. Along the way, Shi Kuei and Xie Sha had killed many small minions, and the road was almost full of blood. The original elegant inner island of the Hidden Dragon Cave was now like a slaughterhouse. After the 3 people slowly walked to the inner island, they saw the ongoing battle. It must be said that the Hidden Dragon Cave, as a spy placed by the Taishaman in the South China Sea, still had a very powerful fighting force. At least Shi Kuei and Xie Sha each had 2 Yuanying stage masters as opponents, and they were fighting in the air. Ho Yun was surrounded by 7 masters, and at first glance, they set up a Big Dipper 7 stars formation, surrounding Ho Yun in the middle. However, Ho Yun's strength was unexpected by everyone. Just the power of the peak Yuanying stage that broke out now made him not fall into a disadvantage in the sword formation. The golden stick has been restored to be thicker than an ordinary stick, but it is not exaggerated. But the power contained in it made the 7 Yuanying stage masters not dare to touch it easily. They could only rely on the flexibility of the formation to attack Ho Yun's vital points and barely maintain the operation of the formation. On the other side of these experts who were fighting stood two fellows with extremely ugly expressions. Yang Chun saw clearly that the two were the cave master of the Hidden Dragon Cave, Yu Winnie, and an elder. In his previous life, Yang Chun had been chased by the two, and he would never mistake them. However, there was no such seven-star sword formation in Yang Chun's memory. The formation turned out to be 7 identical Yuanying stage masters. The 7 faces were not the slightest bit different, and the same cultivation base was almost the same. Even the clothes they wore were the same style, but there was a difference in color. Yuanying stage septuplets, it was simply an incredible thing. In the memory of Yang Chen's previous life, there has never been such a situation, and he didn't know where the Hidden Dragon Cave found the septuplets, and they even knew such a powerful formation. It was estimated that this was the power left by the Taishaman to the Hidden Dragon Cave. Otherwise, it would not have been frozen in his previous life, so that Yang Chun didn't know about it. Yang Chun has always overestimated the power of the Taishaman, but he still did not expect that there would be no less than a dozen Yuanying stage masters in the Hidden Dragon Cave of the South China Sea Row Cultivator Alliance. It can be seen that the power hidden in other places was still unknown. Sure enough, it was worthy of being the largest sect in the Dao sects. After tens of thousands of disciples were destroyed by Yang Chun, there was still such a foundation, and it was still in the case of not showing the mountain and not showing the water. Even Yang Chun couldn't help but say that it was powerful. The septuplets Yuanying stage, their cultivation base was the same, and even their minds were connected. The movements of the 7 people were like one person, and with the help of the Big Dipper 7-star sword formation, even if the realm was only the early Yuanying stage, they were evenly matched with Ho Yun. Fortunately, Ho Yun's posture was not invincible. He just used this 7-star sword formation to familiarize himself with the fighting methods of the cultivators in the world, and forcibly suppressed his strength to the level of the peak Yuanying stage. Even so, Ho Yun's powerful power suppressed the septuplet master. It may have been that there had been a contact with the magic weapon before. One of the septuplet's flying sword was obviously different from the other 6, and it was estimated that it had been destroyed by Ho Yun. Because of this small defect, it seemed that there was a slight flaw in the coordination of the 7-star sword formation. Ho Yun, of course, was sensitive to this flaw and was desperately chasing this flaw and attacking frantically. The Hidden Dragon Cave Master Yu Winnie was behind the formation, and he was shocked and angry. Where did this group of experts come from? They had no enmity with each other, yet they dared to kill the moment they arrived. Several islands repeatedly sent out warnings, but he did not dare to leave to support them. He could only watch helplessly as the disciples on the other islands were slaughtered. When he saw Yang Chun and the other 2 walking slowly, as if they were sightseeing, Yuan could not see that Yang Chun was the leader among the crowd, and he immediately shouted and flew over. Chapter 821. My Hidden Dragon Cave has no grievances with you. Why do you want to kill my Hidden Dragon Cave? People are still in the air, Yuan asked Yang Chun sharply, and the angry voice almost spread throughout the main island of the Hidden Dragon Cave. Then what hatred does my Wanbao Tower have with your Hidden Dragon Cave? Yang Chun snorted coldly, and immediately responded tit for tat. At this time, he remembered to be reasonable. If there was no grievance and no hatred, what did he do before? Yuan listened to Yang Chen's words and almost fell to the ground in midair. How could he have thought that a small Wanbao Tower, from the shopkeeper to the shop assistants, would have such a great heritage? If he had known this, he would not have agreed with those little bastards to provoke Wanbao Tower. In fact, in many sects of the Central Plains Dao sects, everyone knows that Wanbao Tower is a business owned by Yang Chen's family. From a moment that Yang Chun became a 5th-grade alchemist master, the Wanbao Tower branches opened in various markets have been regarded as the focus of attention. Who dares to take the idea of Wanbao Tower? This is the South China Sea, where the Rogue Cultivators Alliance is located. It is almost 1,000,000 miles away from the Central Plains Dao sects, and the transmission of news between each other is not so smooth. The news that Yang Chun is a 5th-grade alchemist master has not yet reached here. In the eyes of these rogue cultivators, the disciples of the big sect of the Central Plains Tao sects, even if they are ninth-grade alchemist masters, have nothing to do with them. It is estimated that many people will not leave this archipelago in this life. How can they care about the big shots millions of miles away? To put it bluntly, even the leader of the Taishaman sect, who is known as the leader of the Tao sects, it is estimated that 9 out of 10 people in the South China Sea do not know what his surname is. In this case, the people of the Hidden Dragon Cave have no scruples about dealing with a branch of a small business, who made the things of Wanbao Tower scarce in the South China Sea, and the huge benefits immediately moved people's hearts. Hidden Dragon Cave was ahead. Even if it was not Hidden Dragon Cave, there would be other organizations that would make a move. This is also where Yuweni is depressed. If he had known that Wanbao Tower had such a powerful backer, he would have just conducted his business in an orderly manner. How could he have found such a terrifying enemy? To tell the truth, Yuweni did not pay much attention to the foundation of the Hidden Dragon Cave, but the task assigned by the Taishaman, after this encounter, was extremely difficult. In this southern sea, Yuweni has almost been arranged for more than 100 years. Seeing that as long as he endured for another 100 years, he could control the South China Sea Alliance, thus making great contributions to the Taishaman, and he would become the most powerful person in the South China Sea. Unexpectedly, because of dealing with a small business or a branch, so many masters killed to the door, the Hidden Dragon Cave was wiped out more than half, and now the masters on the surrounding islands began to gather towards the main island. More than a dozen Yuanying stage masters. He was afraid that they would be doomed today. Even the strength of the septuplets has been pinned down by the powerful enemy, leaving Yuweni himself and another elder, who were by no means the opponents of 7 or 8 Yuanying stage masters. That was a misunderstanding. I am willing to compensate for all the losses of your business, hand over all the murderers, and apologize. When it was time to give in, Yuweni could not hold on, and immediately bowed to Yang Chun and pleaded, "As long as you put forward the conditions, my Hidden Dragon Cave will have no second words. How about a truce between the two sides for the time being? Where there is life, there is no fear of no firewood to burn." Yuweni is also a person who can afford to let go. He made this low posture in an instant. As long as these Yuanying stage masters in front of him were not lost, the power of the Hidden Dragon Cave would not be lost too much, and there would be opportunities to make a comeback in the future. Anyway, as long as he endured for another 100 years, the South China Sea Alliance could be firmly held in his hands. At that time, with the rewards of the Taishaman and the resources of the South China Sea Alliance, Yuweni was absolutely hopeful to ascend. With ascension as the goal, why should he care about bowing his head a little? Moreover, when the time comes, the power of the Taishaman and the South China Sea Alliance will be used to deal with this Wanbao Tower. A gentleman's revenge. 100 years is not too late. You always don't shed tears until you see the coffin. If you knew it would be like this, why did you do it in the first place? Yang Chun just snorted coldly and said contemptuously, Yes, I'm not strict enough. I am very sorry." Yuweni didn't seem to hear the tone of Yang Chun's contempt. He still smiled and said, "I am willing to compensate for your loss 100 times. How about you do it first?" When he spoke, he didn't feel that he was a master of the peak Yuanying stage and called Yang Chun, a junior of the Jedon stage, what was shameful. When this was said, several figures had flown around. They were the masters of the Chunyang Palace Hall of Eccentrics who killed on other islands. As soon as their figures appeared, Shi Kuei and Xie Sha couldn't help shouting in unison, "Don't steal our opponents!" They shouted, but their hands were more fierce. Their 4 opponents suddenly felt the pressure. 8 masters of the Yuanying stage gathered, plus Yang Chun and Gong Sunling, and an old tree demon clone whose depth could not be seen, Yuweni and the remaining elder of the Hidden Dragon Cave. Their faces also changed several times in succession. If they join the battle group, these secret assets of the Hidden Dragon Cave will all be destroyed in this battle. At this moment, even if they regret it 10,000 times, it is useless. Only by begging Yang Chun to let go of the Hidden Dragon Cave would there be a chance of survival. Yuwen's tone was more sincere. "This time my Hidden Dragon Cave is wrong. Please look at the face of the South China Sea Alliance. Let go of my Hidden Dragon Cave this time. I will have a generous reward. South China Sea Alliance? Yang Chun mentioned it with a hint of playfulness, and asked with some amusement, "There is such a big movement here. It is impossible for the South China Sea Alliance not to know, right? But have you seen a person from the South China Sea Alliance come out?" Yuan was also eager to get away. At first, he didn't notice this. When Yang Chun reminded him, he reacted, and his face changed dramatically. The South China Sea Alliance hasn't even come to watch the fun for such a long time. What happened can only be imagined. Your Excellency is so hard to force. Do you really think that my hidden dragon cave has reached the end of the road? When Yuan realized that Yang Chun must let them die, he no longer spoke in a low voice. His body swayed, and he returned to the position just now. He smiled and said, "Since this is the case, then don't blame this old man for being cruel and merciless. Leave them all to me." I don't know what Yuan did. In the area where everyone fought, a piece of flat land with a radius of hundreds of feet, the red light flashed under the ground in an instant. Accompanied by Yuan's crazy smile, everyone except Yuan and the elders around him was suddenly enveloped in it. Chapter 822. As soon as the red light came out, the bloody smell became more pungent, and the pieces of corpses on the ground and the blood flowing all over the ground seemed to have suddenly begun to change at this moment. It was as if there was an invisible big mouth that was devouring everything, and the flesh and blood were quickly swallowed without a trace. It was just a while. In addition to the bloody smell, there was no trace of flesh and blood. The 11 Yuanying stage masters who were fighting with Shi Kuei, Xie Sha, and Hou Yun, their faces changed greatly. Regardless of anything else, everyone took out a red medicinal pill from the Chinquan bag and quickly swallowed it. In the Central Plains Dao sects, basically every sect has a mountain protection formation. Once there is a foreign enemy invasion, it will be launched immediately to keep the foreign enemy out of the formation. However, on the side of the South China Sea, it was difficult to have such a large-scale formation. First, each island was distributed in different places, and it was difficult for the mountain protection formation to accurately protect the island that was needed. Moreover, the island was too small to arrange a large-scale formation. The small formation was not powerful enough to resist the masters. So basically, the rogue cultivator alliances on the side of the South China Sea did not have a mountain protection formation. But this does not prevent some alliances from arranging some small formations on their own main island. The formation of the Hidden Dragon Cave was one of them. However, this red formation seemed to be very evil, full of bloody smell, and when the formation was launched, everyone had a feeling of blood and qi surging. Yang Chen's spiritual awareness was almost the most powerful, and he immediately noticed that the formation was quietly absorbing everyone's blood and qi. This kind of formation was simply not distinguishing between friends and enemies. Even those masters of the Hidden Dragon Cave were also absorbed. But soon Yang Chun discovered that when those guys in the Hidden Dragon Cave took the red medicinal pill, the speed of blood and qi being absorbed suddenly dropped a lot. Compared with the people on Yang Chen's side, it was basically a 1 to 10 comparison. At this time, everyone had discovered the abnormality of their bodies, and they wanted to get out of this formation, but soon found that everyone's body seemed to be connected with this blood-red light to form a red invisible channel. No matter how far people left, they could not get rid of this red channel that was like a tarsal maggot. The whole body's blood and qi were still continuously absorbed by the red light along this red channel. The doppelganger of the old tree demon, who had been motionless with his eyes half closed, suddenly opened his eyes wide and stomped heavily on the ground. Boom! The entire main island seemed to shake. The old tree demon originally thought that his kick would be able to shatter the formation, but he didn't expect that the formation would absorb most of the spiritual power contained in his kick. In turn, it enriched the formation and became stronger. In just a short while, everyone already felt that they were unable to control their blood qi. While fighting, they were also nervous about losing blood qi, which was indescribably uncomfortable. Later, the 8 Yuanying stage cultivators joined the battle without thinking. Only by quickly killing the enemies in the formation could they free up their hands to deal with this strange formation. Not to mention the hidden dragon cave. Even if it was the Taishaman, in such a small area, it was impossible to trap two masters of the Dashang stage. This was the idea of everyone, so they were merciless. Kill. The more you kill, the more chi and blood you can replenish, and the stronger the formation will be. Let's see how fast you can kill. Ha ha. Outside the formation, Winnie's gloomy voice accompanied by laughter came into everyone's ears, so that the people who were about to start couldn't help but stop. This kind of evil demonic formation, there was really a saying that the more chi and blood it absorbed, the more powerful it was. In the past, these monster race masters would never believe it, but after studying for a long time in Chunyang Palace, they also learned a lot of common sense of the demonic path, and they were no longer the ignorant monster race who only relied on instinct to fight the world. For a moment, everyone fell into an awkward situation where they didn't know whether to fight or not. Everyone knew that the longer the time dragged, the more unfavorable it would be for their own side. But for a while, no one could break this strange formation. Insignificant skill. After careful study for a while, Yang Chun suddenly sneered and said, "Just like this." As soon as the voice fell, under Yang Chen's feet, a large number of blood-red vines suddenly emerged. The vines grew rapidly, and in a short time, the area shining with red light was completely covered. The blood phantom vine flying sword flew out and slashed at the red channel under Gong, Sunling's feet. It was strange that the red invisible channel, which had been fighting with Gong Sunling, broke easily as soon as it met the blood phantom vine flying sword, and the end connected to the formation became connected to the blood phantom vine sword. The flying sword did not stop. According to the order, it slashed at each of the red channels under the feet of the people on the Chunyang Palace side. When it flew back to Yangchun and cut off the one under Yangchen's feet, the blood phantom vine flying sword had connected to 14 red channels. The formation that sucked people's blood and chi, after all, was arranged and then fed with flesh and blood to increase its power. It was not comparable to the blood phantom vine, a plant that was born to suck people's blood. The blood phantom vine sword has absorbed the flesh and blood of several masters of the Dashang stage, and its power was no less than that of the entire formation. The channel connecting everyone was cut off by the blood phantom vine sword, and the blood and chi that was originally absorbed by the formation was in turn absorbed by the blood phantom vine sword. Not only that, but the blood phantom vine, which was all over the ground and suppressed the red light, also began to absorb the blood and chi in the formation. In a short period of time, the original bloody red color became a lot lighter, and everyone could not feel the loss of their own blood and chi. Everything seemed to have returned to before. In such a short time, everyone could notice that the blood and chi in their body had been absorbed by about 10%. Fortunately, everyone was a master, and this loss of blood and chi would not be in their eyes. However, in Yuani's eyes, this scene became another kind of fear. The blood-sucking demonic array, which had always been successful, had no effect. Even the masters of the septuplets, Yuanying stage, and the seven-star sword formation have been dispatched. There was nothing else that could stop Yang Chun and the others from killing people. The 11 Yuanying stage masters of the Hidden Dragon Cave and the battle group had completely lost confidence at this moment. The other party's 3 people were evenly matched with them, and now there were 8 more Yuanying stage masters. Their fate could be imagined. On Yuani's face, there was a trace of determination, and in an instant, he became ferocious, staring at Yang Chun, and suddenly yelled fiercely, "This is what you forced me to do. This is what you forced me to do. Give me all to die." Chapter 823. A yellow medicinal pill the size of an egg suddenly appeared in Yuani's hand. Yuani no longer had any scruples. He opened his mouth and swallowed this medicinal pill into his abdomen. Ah, 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 ah. Yuani's mouth began to emit a burst of screams. The screams of Yuani were echoed by the 4 opponents of Shi Kuei and Xiesha. Without the interference of the blood-sucking demonic array, the 8 monster race Yuanying stage masters of Chunyang Palace had nothing to worry about and directly rushed to the 4 people. They did not dare to rob Ho Yun's opponents. But Shi Kuei and Xie Sha's opponents were not so lucky. Originally 2 against 4, Shi Kuei and Xie Sha still had the upper hand. Now 10 against 4, the outcome was almost instantaneous. The 4 Yuanying stage masters turned into 4 pools of meat in just one face-to-face encounter, and then they were quickly absorbed by the array, leaving no trace. Hou Yun certainly saw the situation here, and his hands were no longer merciful. The big stick waved, and the power suddenly surged. With just one blow, the 7-star sword array could no longer be maintained and broke apart. The 7 Yuanying stage masters were involuntarily brought by Hou Yun's big stick and gathered in one place. Hou Yun, who jumped high, smashed the huge stick down. The 7 people had no choice but to use the flying sword to resist. With a bang, the 7 flying sword were all broken, and the 7 people were also stunned by the powerful pressure. When he fell to the ground, Hou Yun did not look at the 7 people on the ground, but with a slight pick of the stick, the 7 Yuanying stage masters were picked up in front of Gong Sunling. Gong Sunling happily received the unconscious 7 Yuanying stage masters into the Mountain River geographical map, and then together with Yang Chun, looked at Yu Winnie, who was screaming wildly over there. "You forced me to do this! You forced me to do this!" In Yu Winnie's mouth, in addition to the screams, there was only this sentence left. As he spoke, Yu Winnie's body also began to change dramatically. His whole body became red, and his muscles began to swell. After a while, the originally short Yu Winnie became a big guy comparable to Yang Chun and Hou Yun, and the momentum of his body also increased crazily. The Yuanying stage elder, standing next to Yu Winnie from the beginning, stood like a wooden stake, motionless, and did not speak. If not for the fact that he was still gasping for breath, everyone would have thought that he was a dead man. But now, Yu Winnie suddenly grabbed that elder. That elder didn't struggle at all and was helplessly caught in Yu Winnie's hands. Next, Yu Winnie did something that the people of the Tao sect could not tolerate. He actually grabbed the elder and brought him to his mouth. Opening its bloody mouth, it bit the elder's neck and began to suck the blood with a sizzling sound. Yang Chun and the others had vaguely formed a circle. No matter which direction Yu Winnie went, it was impossible for him to escape. There was Hou Yun in the sky, and the roots of the old tree demon clone had quietly covered the entire island. There was no way to go to the sky, and there was no door to the earth. However, Yu Winnie had no intention of escaping at all. He just stared at the blood-red eyes and looked at the people around him, and kept sucking the elder's blood essence in his mouth. The elder who was caught in Yu Winnie's hands had begun to weaken gradually, and finally became weaker and weaker, and finally disappeared. A throw away the elder who had no life left, Yu Winnie's breath soared again, and his body swelled a bit. There was still the blood of the elder in his mouth, and at first glance, it was unusually ferocious. Yu Winnie suddenly screamed at the sky, and the sound shook for hundreds of miles. The clouds began to pile up wildly in the sky, and the sky, which had just been clear, became cloudy after a while. Interesting. Yang Chen's face showed a playful smile. How familiar this situation was. It was simply a sign that he was going to cross the Yin fire tribulation to achieve the Deshang stage. However, Yu Winnie did not reach this realm through normal cultivation, but relied on an unknown medicinal pill and swallowed and absorbed the blood essence of another elder to barely attract the tribulation. 10 Yuanying stage monster cultivators, without thinking about it, approached the old tree demon clone directly. The old tree demon did not neglect and directly propped up a shield, covering everyone including Yang Chun and Gong Sunling. Only Hou Yun was left outside, still standing in the air and looking at Yu Winnie coldly. Such a close observation of the Yin fire tribulation, except for Yang Chun and the old tree demon, it was the first time for others. Hou Yun has passed the Yin fire tribulation, but he has not seen others cross the tribulation at a close distance. Although others have been lucky enough to see Wang Yong cross the tribulation, the distance is not so close. For everyone, this is a rare experience, even for Hou Yun and the old tree demon. At least they can understand what different methods people with different attributes of the five elements use to cross the tribulation. The Yin fire began to burn on Yu Winnie's body. Yu Winnie of the water attribute seemed to deal with the first Yin fire very easily. It was originally water that restrained fire, and the natural mutual restraint made Yu Winnie's tribulation look very easy at first. However, everyone knows that this hidden danger of forcibly improving the realm by relying on demonic arts was easy at first and more difficult later. This was only the first Yin fire, and there were 8 full ones behind it. It was by no means so simple. From the beginning of Yangchun and others, hundreds of miles away, a group of masters of the South China Sea Alliance, led by Bian Shiren and Shu Lanxiu, had already surrounded the sea around the hidden dragon cave. Beside the Bian Shiren couple, there were 3 masters, 2 men, and 1 woman, who could not see the depth, but the Bian Shiren couple were very respectful to them. Needless to say, these were the 3 Deshang stage backups of the South China Sea Alliance. At the beginning of the battle, there were no waves. Not to mention the 3 Deshang stage masters. Even the Bian Shiren couple could easily detect the movement over there with their spiritual awareness. Seeing that Yangchun actually brought 12 Yuanying stage masters, even Bian Shiren couldn't help but be a little surprised. This Wanbao Tower didn't show the mountain or the water, but it still had such a background. When everyone gathered on the main island, Yu Winnie launched the formation, and Bian Shiren didn't worry much. What he meant was that he wanted to send charcoal in the snow when Yangchun and others were defeated, and use this to win over Yangchun. Until the last moment, these people of the South China Sea Alliance would never show up. But the next situation surprised Bian Shiren. The blood-sucking demonic array couldn't do anything to Yangchun and others. Yangchun relied on a strange flying sword to break the blood-sucking demonic array, which made Bian Shiren extremely curious about the flying sword. When Yu Winnie began to trigger the Yin fire tribulation, and Yangchun and others stood by and watched, Bian Shiren finally changed his face. Oh no, how can Yu Winnie be so easy to cross the tribulation without interference? Once Yu Winnie succeeds, it will be the death of Yangchun. Elder, you must save that Yangchun, otherwise the poison in us will not be lifted.